Good evening. We're going to start our meeting. I'd like to call meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. The next item is our approval of our meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Ms. Dayton, is there a second? Dr. Francis, no discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting agenda? 7-0. Thank you. All right. Next up is our student and staff recognition. Mr. Mayor, we're going to head over there. All right, so we're going to do the recognition portion of our meeting tonight. We've got some folks we want to recognize. We ask that you stay until all of the recognitions are complete. Once that's over, we'll take a quick pause if anybody wants to leave. For the students that are here, if you want to stick around and hear the student government folks talk, you're welcome to do so. Always interesting and engaging. So we're going to start with the All-State Student Athletes. Mr. Piotrowski.
First, I'd like to recognize and thank and congratulate all the families and any student athletes from the fall and winter sports who are being recognized for being all-state. As you're going to find out that a lot of these athletes are multi-sport athletes, so they are not going to be here tonight because they're participating in some other sports, and they'll probably be in the spring when being recognized as all-state in a spring sport. So now I'm going to introduce Dana Talata, who's our interim headmaster, who's going to announce the names.
Hello, everyone. From girls swimming and diving, Samantha Ennis, Reggie Frias, Jenna Handali, Megan Lynch, Madeline Muldoon, Annabelle Pollock, Hannah Seward, and Emily Warner. Girls indoor track, Mari Noble. Girls cross country, Zoe Harris and Mari Noble. Boys skiing, Christian Bastic. Girls skiing, Sophia Bastic. Boys soccer, James Johnson. Gymnastics, Gianna Cardini, Kelsey Fedorko, and Ellie Marino. Boys indoor track, Hunter Clark, Lance Large, Zane Nye, and Chris Wint. Boys ice hockey, Nick Pelletier Martinelli. Girls ice hockey, Jennifer Kelly, Katie Piotrowski. Football, Mosey Beachy, Tyson Camizio, Emilio Camus, Jack Feda, Edward Ayutiri. Jack McBriarty, Gavin Muir, and Ryan Raybuck. Boys swimming and diving, Charlie Clark, Nicholas De La Sera, Justin Jacob, Tom Lewis, Nick Malco, Mark Merson, Joel Satir, and Stephen Todorov. Congratulations.
All right, so next up is the Connecticut Association of Schools 2019 Middle School Principal of the Year. So Dr. Carabillo, if you'd like to come on over.
So as I told Gordon's father, who is here tonight, it's going to be very difficult to talk about Gordon because, you know, he's not very personable, he doesn't love his job, he doesn't love his community, he doesn't love his teachers or his children, but we are very, very proud. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Gordon Beinstein, the 2019 Connecticut of Schools Middle School Principal of the Year. He was chosen from a group of very dedicated administrators. As you know, over the years, he has really built a community of passionate teachers and students. Just today, we learned that Mr. Beinstein has been selected to represent Connecticut in the National Association of Secondary Schools Principals National Principal of the Year. As the Connecticut representative, he will go to Washington, D.C. to participate in the National Association of Secondary Principals Institute this fall. The Connecticut Association of Schools Assistant Executive Director said, "We are proud to have such an accomplished administrator representing Connecticut in this prestigious awards program." Congratulations, Gordon.
Thank you.
All right. Next, last but not least, we have our 2019 Distinguished Teacher Award recipients with us tonight. Mr. Schmidt, would you like that?
Good evening. Good evening, Superintendent Mayo, Chairman Bernstein, members of the board and cabinet, and I would like to acknowledge that Dr. Jones, our incoming superintendent, is in the audience today. Thank you for being here. My name is Gene Schmidt, and I'm the principal at Coscop School, and it is my pleasure as the co-chairman to represent the Distinguished Teachers Awards Committee and introduce the class of 2019 Distinguished Teachers to you. This is our 35th year of celebrating the exceptional teaching of all our staff in the Greenwich Public Schools. The selection of the 6 distinguished teachers is done by a 20-member committee, which includes representatives from the Board of Education, the PTA Council, Greenwich Education Association, Greenwich Organization of School Administrators, Kiwanis, and the community at large. The committee is heavily indebted to the support it receives from Kim Eves and Mike Atunaccio, I knew I was going to mess that up, Atunaccio, sorry, in the communications office. I'm honored to present to you the 6 individuals who are passionate about the work they do and who strive to inspire our students to become the lifelong learners, global citizens, problem solvers, and innovators. I'd like to invite you to come to May 7th award ceremony at Central Middle School at 4:30, where you'll hear even more about these amazing educators. So please welcome our first distinguished teacher, Sean Harriman. Sean Harriman has been teaching in the Greenwich Public Schools for 19 years and is a social studies teacher at Greenwich High School. Mr. Harriman guides his students into the understanding that the more they grasp content in regard to the people, groups, and events in social studies, the better they will be able to understand cause and effect, as well as what happens in our world today. In the words of Mr. Harriman's nominator, a current college student, he found a way to really make the subject matter come to life and coaxed me into participating. I felt that I was being taught by a friend, and as a result, I had the confidence to succeed. Next, Crystal Kitzelman. Crystal has been teaching for 7 years, currently as a third grade teacher at North Miami School. Ms. Kitzelman has a keen ability to connect and inspire her students. Her nominator noted that Crystal's ability to connect with all of her students was amazing to witness. Every time I visited the classroom, I watched as she commanded their attention without raising her voice, spoke with calmness and kindness, treated them like the small adults that they are, with respect and understanding, and always assured them by her actions that she had their back. Thank you. Catherine Maseraki. Catherine has been teaching for almost 23 years, most recently at grades 3 through 5 as the ALP teacher at Parkway School. She teaches students the difference between fixed mindset, seeing oneself as having a limited set of abilities, and growth mindset, where effort and attitude determine everything. Ms. Maseraki has been a piano accompanist in Germany to children from war-torn towns in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, which inspired her to connect her students to the global issues. In the words of one of her students, she possesses an aura of kindness, positivity, and enthusiasm. Congratulations. Next, Megan Ostraka. Megan has been teaching at Greenwich High School for 12 years as a social studies and avid teacher. She has taught at every academic level at the high school, from global studies to avid to honor civics and AP government, and has made a lasting impact on every one of those very diverse students. Ms. Ostraka's personal philosophy as a teacher has always been that if students are held to a high standard and supported in their efforts to reach that standard, they will rise to the challenge. Her nominator of students summed it up: Ms. Ostraka is fully vested in my life as she is in all of her students. She is aware of every student's talents and helps them to pursue their passions. Chris Bowers. Chris has been teaching music and band for 24 years, the last 21 years at Koskov School. She believes that when children feel safe and are given a structured learning environment, but also freedom of choice and voice within that structure, they can start to take ownership for their learning. As one colleague put it, she's a master at seeing the talent inside of a student and then inspiring them to find it in themselves. Another said, Chris inspires each student to be a shining star. Finally, Carrie Vale. Carrie has been a teacher for 9 years, the last 6 as a 5th grade teacher at Parkway School. One of the district instructional coaches shared, she doesn't view teaching as a job, but as a moral obligation to continuously improve for her students. Ms. Vale motivates all learners by providing them with performance-based tasks and real-life experiences. Indicative of Ms. Vale's passion about teaching are her words of advice for what an inspiring teacher needs: thoughts. trust, honesty, optimism, uniqueness, grit, heart, tenacity, and self-discipline. These are words to live by not only by educators, but for all of us. Congratulations.
So that's it for the recognition portion of our meeting tonight. We'll take a quick break for anybody who wants to run out. For the students, if you want to stay and hear your peers speak, they're coming up.
Yeah. We still need all the public stuff. We're going to get back to our meeting now. All right, next up on the agenda is our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda? Ms. Dayton, is there a second? Dr. Francis, I'd like to make a motion to remove an item from the consent agenda. I would like to remove the minutes of the special meeting of March 28th and put those as the last action item because I think that change is necessary. If that's okay with everybody? There's a second from Ms. Dayton. Any discussion of that? All right, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, that passes 5-0. All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the amended consent agenda. All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, next up is going to be our school welcome, Chris Weiss. And while you're coming down, I just want to thank Riverside for hosting the Distinguished Teacher event every year. We sneak in and actually sit with the candidates first. They're so nice to have us, and thank you to the PTA as well for putting that on.
Good evening. Oh, well, sorry about that. Good evening and welcome to Riverside School. I want to thank the Riverside PTA presidents, Ms. Sarah Morris and Ms. Kristen Duda, and the members of the PTA Executive Board for hosting a reception for our community, the Board of Ed, cabinet members, and our teacher award recipients just before our meeting today. I also want to thank our new a cappella group, the Riverside Rhapsody, who were able to share a song, and they were led by teacher Lauren Reagan, who's in the back joining us. So I just want to give them a hand and a great job they did. Some of them may still be here. I'm honored to welcome Board of Education Chair Peter Bernstein, each of the members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Ralph Mayo, Cabinet and staff members from the Greenwich Public Schools, incoming Superintendent for next year, Dr. Jones, members of the public, families, students, as well as, of course, earlier, the fine teachers who are here in representing our great district. Ms. Key and I, we're very happy to have you here and everyone joining us this evening. As a school, we strongly support the district's mission to educate all students to the highest levels of academic achievement, to enable them to reach and expand on their potential, and to prepare them to become productive, responsible, ethical, creative, and compassionate members of society. Here at Riverside, our staff and students work daily to work toward reaching these goals, and we also celebrate the social emotional learning that happens, character and leadership development in so many ways. And one in particular is our wall of respect, with student photos and ways they follow our district norms and show kindness and caring as citizens of our school. And it's right outside our auditorium. You'll see it when you leave. We also have students who meet daily with their teachers in classrooms for morning meeting to share, learn, and grow together as a community. We celebrate many acts of kindness and service here at the school, including our Riverside Rangers program in the 5th grade, our Student Leadership Council in the 4th grade, our PTA-sponsored STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Fair, open to all students just recently. And we have many service projects, including a 5th grade service project and much more. This year, we were again recognized as a State of Connecticut Department of Education School of Distinction, so we're very proud of that recognition. And we have some other special things that have recently been happening regarding Earth Day and Earth Week, so we want to recognize those. So this whole week we've been celebrating Earth Week here at school, and our PTA sponsors that with us. And we have a very special banner that's on the left of the stage over there, the Connecticut Greenleaf School Recognition. So we earned that this year, so we're very proud of that recognition as a school and for the work that all of the community is doing to make us a better community and a better school. This week, students participated in lots of fun activities for Earth Week, including Make a Difference Monday, Trash Free Tuesday, Walk to School Wednesday, Turn Off the Tap Thursday, and Smart Food Friday tomorrow. And we had a special celebration today outside with the Riverside Area Garden Club, Cheryl Carter, the beekeeper, and a number of others doing soil, pollinator, and garden activities here outside the school. So there's a lot of great things happening here at Riverside, and we're very proud of. And at this time, I just want to turn it over to, of course, our Board of Ed and welcome you. We hope you have an enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. All right, next up is going to be our public hearing. So first we're going to hear from the GHS student government.
Chairman Bernstein, Mr. Mayo, members of the board, and all meeting attendees. We're going to go a little bit out of our conventional order today. I'm going to speak first, and then James is going to talk about something really important for the senior class. But what I'm here today to talk about is the Los Angeles Clippers. See, this is my penultimate Board of Ed speech, which would be tragic if there weren't so much good news to report from student government. This entire school year, student government has done battle with the lack of involvement that has plagued the GHS community for the last couple of years. When planning school events, it's always been an uphill battle, much like the Clippers' path towards NBA championship glory this year. In the first round of the NBA playoffs, the Clippers have had to face the Goliath, that is the Golden State Warriors. ESPN has been putting 12-1 odds against the Clippers, and everyone thought that last night's game would be their last after already losing 3 to the Warriors. But that's just not the case, for the Clippers defeated the Juggernaut 129-121. So, GHS. In a way, the recent GHS Unity Week mirrors what happened in last night's game. Student government had no idea what to expect when planning the event, so we were overjoyed by our peers' reception. For instance, our Unity chain, which consisted of students writing their name and a positive message on a slip of paper before taping into a single link on the chain, nearly filled up an entire 1 foot by cube box when it was all said and done. The Unity Rally to remember school tragedies was another success, with the student center being filled completely with students sharing a moment of silence together and wearing green Unity ribbons. We hope to continue this success into our upcoming events as we close out this year, most notable being our food truck fair. We already have 5 food trucks saying that they can potentially attend, with the fair being scheduled for May 4th from 12 to 4. Make a note. Hopefully this event will extend past the GHS community to draw people from all corners of this town, including Riverside. Just like in prior years, the fair will raise money for Kids in Crisis, an important local organization that we are overjoyed to be able to help. I'm not saying the Clippers will win the NBA championship this year. What I am saying is that they'll get pretty close and win it next year. Hopefully, the involvement that we're seeing with the Unity Week and the food truck fair is a sign of things to come. Thank you. Now, James.
Good evening. As Alex mentioned, we switched up the usual order tonight. Alex gave the monthly update of the school, and I will give you the biggest issue that we are currently facing as it relates to my job as senior class president. The bleachers. Bleachers are extremely important to the community at GHS. Every Cardinal at some time has been on those bleachers cheering on one of our many sports teams. Ranging from the state champion football team to the state champion girls track team, all of these teams perform and play in front of those very bleachers. Even Alex and I, and it's nothing to brag about if you've seen me throw, compete directly in front of those bleachers. So the current circumstances have presented a threat to the quality of the seasons that are occurring right now. Every sport from rugby to lacrosse plays on the main field, and without those bleachers are facing a serious setback as far as community involvement. While this issue alone is enough to rush renovations or solutions to this problem, there is one more issue which is arguably even more significant. Graduation. Our class has been at GHS for 4 years and we're reaching our end. This is usually culminated in a massive graduation ceremony. As any of you who have attended know, it is a huge open-air ceremony of epic proportion. It is, a quote from Alex, it is a proper culminating event for all the work that the students have put in throughout their years at GHS combined. All of the students and dignitaries are surrounded by their cheering families and peers, and we all graduate together. One class, one graduation. Now, as I'm sure you are all aware, the image that I have presented to you is being challenged this year. With the abrupt closure of the bleachers, we are left playing damage control. My classmates have been completely rattled by the mere idea that we won't be graduating together, and I have not found a single senior or staff member or parent who has been positive about the change to the plans. However, we have been able to field some recommendations. Students have come forward with plans ranging from having the graduation at the beach to renting bleachers to put on the track. There are petitions, one with 983 signatures as of 2 hours ago, but as I wrote that, I had to edit it 4 times to accommodate for the incoming signatures. And all of these petitions are trying to achieve the same ends, which is one class and one graduation. Members of the class would even be satisfied if the current bleachers were removed and families could bring lawn chairs and blankets to sit down and watch the graduation occur. As senior class president, I implore you to assist my classmates and I in being able to have one summative event to conclude our GHS experience. One class, one graduation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, GEA. Carol.
I'm sure the teachers will be your allies in one graduation. Good evening, Principal Weiss, Chairman Bernstein, Board of Education members, Superintendent Mayo, Cabinet, and community members. My name is Carol Sutton, and I'm proud to represent more than 900 members of the Greenwich Education Association, 6 of whom were just recognized tonight as the Distinguished Teachers Class of 2019. So I haven't been feeling well, and tonight is all about the celebration, so that's where I really want to focus. And the teachers went home probably to do their work, so I'm going to change the pronouns real quick. So Crystal, Chris, Kerry, Kate, Megan, and Sean. They are the class of 2019 Distinguished Teachers. They are truly the tip of an iceberg. And no, I do not mean the Titanic, that one. They are the tip of an iceberg. They shine brightly out there in the light, in full view, the epitome of what it means to be an educator in Greenwich. They are inspirational, innovative, encouraging, changers of lives, and masters of their craft. Beneath the tip, sometimes the part you can't see, are their teachers over all the many years. their colleagues, which may include you, their families, their Greenwich families, their building leaders, everyone who has made them the teachers they are today is floating along with them. Which brings me to the water. The water that the iceberg floats in is the Greenwich Public School community. It is the parents, the citizens, the taxpayers, our very own Board of Education, and you. These are all the forces that support teachers, all teachers, on their professional journeys. And what a journey it is. Propelled by the winds of change, sometimes just a fresh breeze, sometimes a zephyr, sometimes a hurricane. The path is uncertain for teachers, but the destination is always forward. And the students are all around to keep the journey a hopeful one. So as many of you know, education is the best career there is. And today is a great day to be a teacher in Greenwich among these distinguished teachers. On behalf of GEA, we want to congratulate them, and we hope that they enjoy the limelight they have earned and they so richly deserve. And it's because of all of you and all of us that they're able to shine brightly today and in the next couple of weeks. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to some interesting topics tonight. Thank you.
All right, so next up is PTA Council.
Good evening, Superintendent Mayo, Chairman Bernstein, Principal Weiss, incoming Superintendent Jones, members of the board, cabinet, and community. I'm Karen Hirsch, President of PTA Council, and with me is Cricket Diamond, First VP. Tonight we have the opportunity to recognize the achievements of a number of individuals in the Greenwich Public Schools and begin with congratulations to the All-State student athletes who are honored tonight. It's a designation that is no easy feat to achieve. They have all worked very hard on and off the field and are very deserving of this honor. Congratulations. We're also delighted to congratulate the distinguished teachers of 2019 who are key components in making Greenwich Public Schools so exceptional. We stand in awe of their commitment to our children, their love of learning, and their inspiring achievements. Thanks also goes to the review committee, as we're sure that with so many amazing candidates who truly epitomize what it means to be named a distinguished teacher, that selecting this year's recipients was no easy task. Again, thank you all for bringing the best out in our students. We also have the special honor of congratulating Connecticut Associations of Schools 2019 Middle School Principal of the Year, Gordon Beinstein. His passion for education energizes and inspires others to do and be their best. His high expectations of what can be achieved in a student's 3 years at Western drives others to not only meet but exceed those expectations. The culture of support he's created at Western is reflected in parent satisfaction surveys and the incredible growth in Western's test scores. Congratulations, Principal Beinstein. This is truly a well-deserved honor. Turning now to the agenda, Council is curious to learn more about the secondary school's revisioning plan and task forces. We've met with Irene Parisi to arrange regular meetings going forward and are available to help with parent visioning committees. We note that the project risks and believe that transparent, ongoing communication with stakeholders would go a long way in reducing the resistance to change. Working with council committees to connect with parents, get valuable input and feedback will also be very helpful with buy-in and supports your goal to increase effective stakeholder communication. Council supports the district's focus on removing harmful styrofoam trays from our schools and evaluating alternative options such as stainless steel trays. This has been a goal of our Green Schools Committee for many years. Through their efforts, several alternative solutions have been piloted. However, the district has ultimately gone back to using the cheaper option of styrofoam trays. With pending state legislation to ban all polystyrene products in school lunch programs and Earth Day being celebrated earlier this week, it is the ideal time to not only support reducing the use of these products in our cafeterias, but to lead the state in taking a stand against the negative effects that they have on student health and the environment. Council also supports continued discussions on improving the quality of the food being offered to our students. And when it comes to students, Council does not waver in its views that safety is paramount, be it in our schools, our cafeterias, on school trips, during competitions or performances. Our students and those who come to support them should not have to worry about their safety, which is why council is relieved that the issues with Cardinal Stadium bleachers are being taken seriously. At approximately 50 years old, they are well beyond current structural and safety codes, including the latest ADA specifications. And we hope that these issues will be addressed during the Phase 1 of Cardinal Stadium Plan or sooner.
Council thanks you for taking our comments on board policy revision to heart and adding provisions to the fundraising policy for your partners in education. With revisions to the gift policy being discussed, we ask that you clarify who is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of such gifts in either this policy or in your procedural documents. We also note the policy regarding technology donations to the schools and suggest that should a school feel additional technology is needed for specific curriculum delivery or testing purposes, that the district consider supporting funding these requests to help maintain equity amongst the schools. We are pleased to see that the board is setting goals focused on improving effectiveness, accountability, and the creation of a communication plan for the upcoming year. While we understand that this is a working document and a first step in providing a framework for accountability and budget planning, we were disappointed that there is no goal directly focused on student learning and achievement. While it is an implied goal within your focus on the strategic plan, student achievement should always remain front and center. We also note none of the goals focus on upcoming district initiatives such as the program review, teacher training, student safety, or oversight of the master facility plan, and hope that the forthcoming communication plan will include specific details for communication with parents to educate them on school initiatives and board discussions and decisions. Before we end, we want to promote PTAC and Greenwich Alliance's upcoming parent workshops on growing strong readers. We are committed to ensuring that families have the information needed to support student academic success and providing opportunities to increase family engagement. We invite you to attend the workshops being held on Tuesday, April 30th at 7 p.m. at the Boys and Girls Club and on Wednesday, May 1st at 10 a.m. at Julian Curtis School. In closing, we want to circle back to the special qualities of the teachers honored this evening. With gratitude for all the teachers in our district who inspire enthusiasm, who push students to take responsibility for their learning and elicit high levels of achievement, who communicate well and have the respect of students, parents, and colleagues. With all these qualities, you improve our schools and our district well beyond classroom walls and far into the future. And for all this, we are incredibly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is our community comments portion. So speakers get 3 minutes. Ms. Wilson is our acting secretary tonight. She give you a 30-second warning and then 3 minutes, and that's the end. If you go over, you can always email your comments to the board. We have 3 students signed up for non-agenda item, and then we've got about 12 speakers for an agenda item. So I'd like to take the students first if we could. So Isabella Gega, Mitch Goldstein, and Maya Jam, if you want to come down.
Good evening, and the board members. Our concern is the current testing procedures for the Greenwich Public Schools Advanced Learning Program and how they may be poorly constructed, therefore leading to less optimal results. This could potentially result in the system-level failure to identify high-altitude students and cause inefficiency and underperformance as students are not necessarily being placed according to their abilities. As 3 8th grade students who feel that the system has failed us, we collaboratively decided to research this program, and tonight we will share our findings.
The first fault that we identified didn't require much analysis. The system in its essence is uncorroborated. After an interview with Bonnie O'Regan, the ALP facilitator, it became evident that the facilitator had neglected to test the system's approach thoroughly. How can a gifted education program be successful if all possible defects are always overlooked? If ALP is designed to nurture gifted students, it would be vital to track the progress of previously selected students in higher level education. We suspect that in a system misplacement prevails. It concerns us that the system can cavalierly assume that suffering incorrectly placed students are part of the minority. Throughout this process, my partners and I surmised that flawed identification methods fuel the possibility of misplacement. While our inability to access these entrance exams limited us, we are able to find 3 superbly difficult practice questions for the fourth grade math ALP performance task. This test, which consists of 8 questions that requires the test taker to apply grade level concepts in an open-ended format. Since the typically allotted time is 40 minutes for 8 questions, my partners and I attempted to complete the 3 questions in 15 minutes, 5 minutes per question. As students who are currently enrolled in geometry, which teaches 10th grade curriculum in 8th grade, this test should have been extremely easy, but it wasn't.
Although all 3 of us were perplexed by the difficulty of this exam, we proceeded to give it to every single geometry student in our grade. Additionally, we added a survey that asked the geometry students simple questions about their current class grade and whether or not they were previously in ALP. The following is a breakdown of the data. The average score on the 4th grade performance assessment given to 10th grade math students was 6.5%, which is a stunningly low score, especially when the assessment is designed for students that are learning 6th grade levels below us. Fundamentally, this means that 1 in every 7 students answered only 1 question correctly. Furthermore, 37% of all students in geometry were not former math ALP students. This means that 37% of students who were deemed average by the system were eventually able to take an honors math course and thrive. Of the bottom 20% of the class, in which said individuals received a grade of 85 or below, 5 out of 6, or 83%, were previously in ALP. The data doesn't even include 2 ALP students who were kicked out earlier in the year because of low grade averages. Notice that there are 2 ALP students who received a final grade below a C+. The data speaks for itself. It's all in front of you. Why is it that we're the only ones looking at this? The difficulty of this test actually transcended the abilities of high aptitude 8th grade students. By using the findings of the practice assessment, it is quite evident that this test is not a reliable method in searching for giftedness in an individual. When Ms. O'Regan was questioned as to why 4th graders shouldn't be capable of solving math problems that 10th grade students can't, she merely replied that it was a manner in which the problems were being approached. This leads us to the question, doesn't knowing more about math correlate to being able to solve more complex problems? No matter the approach, these 10th graders should have been able to solve a 4th grade math ALP test. We are all dumbfounded to think otherwise.
There are several revisions that can be made to further improve our current system. Virtually all the identification methods for ALP are reliant on mastery rather than natural aptitude. The use of the achievement test can oftentimes lead to an inaccurate representation of a student's potential. How can one tell if a child is gifted if they're given an assessment that doesn't even measure their own intellect, but rather the mastery of random concepts? Now, we do not suggest that the achievement test shouldn't be used, but instead we should guarantee that every single test taker has equal exposure to the tested concepts. Aptitude tests are favorable because of prior knowledge cannot be used as a resource to aid in overall performance. Additionally, we feel that the ALP system would greatly benefit if we bestow teachers with more power over the student placement. Currently, their recommendations can only register the student to take the ALP exam. Ms. O'Regan had told us she is constantly searching for students who have been misplaced, but her lack of familiarity with each student will hinder their chances of entry. Teachers spend more than 7 hours a day for 181 days with students in their class. The teachers will unequivocally know more about the student's learning potential and preferred placement. We suggest that teachers should actually be able to place the student in an ALP. This goes without saying that the system needs to be tested. It's impossible to run a program when the effectiveness of this program is given and the effectiveness of a given program is unknown.
Thank you for your time. We hope our presentation has prompted you to reevaluate the prime objective of your program, proper placement for every student.
It's always great when students come to talk to us, and this is part of their capstone project. All right, next up, we're going to turn back to our agenda items. So the first speaker is Julie Deschamps, followed by Patricia Sesto. Again, it's 3 minutes per speaker.
Good evening. My name is Julie Deschamps from Green Schools. For over a decade, parents, students, and community leaders have advocated for the elimination of styrofoam cafeteria trays because this material is toxic, hazardous, and wasteful. Legislation is now pending in the State Assembly to ban styrofoam trays in Connecticut schools by July 2020. Let's get ahead of this issue and lead by instituting the most responsible solution, reusable trays with dishwashing systems. Time and again, our concerns about health and environmental impacts of foam trays have been overshadowed by fiscal considerations. However, there is actually a significant long-term cost savings in procurement, hauling, and disposal with a reusable system. The upfront costs of dishwashers and reusable stainless steel trays like this are about $130,000. This cost is a fraction of other district projects to safeguard student health. And in under 2 years, there should be a return on this initial investment. The approximate annual cost of reusable systems is $13,400, about $1,500 less than foam trays. Any labor costs will depend on procedural efficiencies. However, isn't an investment in staff more valuable than plastic destined for the trash can? Hauling fees could be potentially reduced too. Green Schools did a study at Eastern. The towers in the back show how many trays are trashed each day. We found a 75% reduction in cafeteria waste when the trays were removed. District-wide, this would eliminate over 18,700 bags of trash each year. Surely this would mean fewer pickups and associated savings if the hauling contract can be renegotiated. And the town could save on disposal fees. It is estimated that the almost 500,000 foam trays thrown away in our cafeterias would fill 39 tractor trailers at an average cost of $71,000 in disposal expenses each year. So a reusable ware system could have a significant cost savings in regard to procurement, hauling, and disposal. It has been asked if other disposable wares are an option. 30 seconds. This molded fiber tray, which is being used at other districts, have recently been found to contain fluorinated additives that are associated with serious health effects, and they are more than double the cost of styrofoam and will be expensive to dispose. We urge the board to fund and provide reusable trays and dishwashers at all district schools in the next school year, starting with a test run at New Lebanon School this spring. This is the most responsible solution for student health, our environment, and the budget. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. So the next speaker is Patricia Sesto, followed by Renata Malastro.
Good evening. I am Patricia Sesto. I am Greenwich's Director of Environmental Affairs, and I'm representing the Conservation Commission this evening. Part of the Conservation Commission's responsibility is to educate the community and be stewards of our open space and, all things green and wonderful, which means I have a great job. Our community has 28 non-government organizations regarding conservation-type issues. And in looking at the styrofoam tray issue, it was surprising to me that Greenwich actually throws away 500,000 of these trays each year, as it is such a stark contrast to so many of the people that I work with and so many of the issues that we work to protect our community from. It was also a telling finding for me to understand that we do not have dishwashers in our schools anymore. When did that happen? The decision to take dishwashers out of our schools was fundamentally saying we are supporting single-use throwaway items and packaging of an irresponsible amount for all single-serve items. That's what getting rid of dishwashers, that's the culture that we are supporting. I think of that and the students who are in classes who are learning about sustainability, learning about climate change, and our personal responsibilities to being proper stewards of this earth. And then they leave that class, they go to a cafeteria, they get a styrofoam tray with single-serve items and throw it away. It reminds me very much of what my mother used to say to me that would irritate me no end. Do as I say, not as I do. That's the education that we're teaching our children by using these styrofoam trays. This is a community that received the highest level of sustainability award, or silver certificate. The schools are a part of what the fabric of our community is and what earned us that certificate. Very proud to be part of that and be part of a community with such high goals. We've banned plastic bags, we're working on straws. This is a community that believes that these things are not in our best interest. I look to this board to recognize how styrofoam trays portray us as a community, the message that we're sending our children about sustainability, and our individual role in maintaining a sustainable community and world. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Renata Malesha, followed by Cameron Castelli.
Good evening. Our names are Cameron Castelli and Renata Malashev, and we are the co-presidents of Environmental Action Club at Greenwich High School. We have made our way here tonight to talk about the potential replacement of the toxic and harmful styrofoam trays that are currently being used in the Greenwich public school systems. As seniors who have spent the past 12 years within the public school system, we see the impacts of the styrofoam trays every day. At lunch, hundreds of students are discarding the styrofoam trays, which are unable to be properly recycled due to food contamination after single use. This results in almost 500,000 trash trays each year, the majority of which will then be incinerated. The effects of the trays will undoubtedly decrease the air quality of the town and pose serious health issues both to the students and to our environment.
In addition to excess waste and continuing the use of styrofoam trays, students are being exposed to harmful carcinogens and neurotoxins, such as styrene, commonly found in styrofoam items. Studies have shown that when put in contact with hot food, the chemicals in each tray will either leach into the food or through breakage will be ingested directly. Personally, we'd like to think that most of you would prefer for your sons or daughters to be ordering their Wednesday meatballs with a sprinkling of Parmesan rather than toxicants. Hence why we are proposing reusable ware systems. Stainless steel compartment trays are not only more environmentally and student-friendly, but they will in fact financially benefit the Greenwich Public School systems in the long run. Rather than having to purchase an abundance of styrofoam trays each school year, with our proposal, the GPS will only be required to pay an upfront cost for the steel trays along with several dishwashing systems. As students, the choice to protect our health is clear. The only question now is whether or not the Greenwich Public School Systems is willing to act accordingly and listen to the voices of those affected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is Maddie Martin, followed by Juliana Amaderi.
Hello everybody and good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, especially since my mom is letting me stay up past my bedtime. My name is Maddie Martin. I'm 8 years old and a 4th grade student here at Riverside School. I eat lunch right next door in the cafe. My mom usually packs my lunch because she wants me to have the healthiest food possible, but I always get to buy on Wednesdays. My favorite lunch is the nachos, and I like the choice of all the fruits and veggies. There's a really big problem though. This is what we have to eat off of, styrofoam trays. There are 2 things wrong with this. 1, these are terrible for our environment. I just did my STEM Fair project on pollution. Did you know that we can't recycle styrofoam and that it never breaks down? We use this for a few minutes and then it stays in the landfill forever. Does that sound good to you? We need to protect our earth for when I am older and for my kids and grandkids. We can't be selfish. We can't choose something harmful just because it's cheap. When When I eat food off the tray, some of the styrofoam can get in my mouth. If that happens, the styrene in it could give me headaches, cause problems to my kidneys, make me tired and sad, or even give me cancer. Is that a risk you are willing to take? I'm asking you to switch to a safer, more responsible choice. Please help protect me, my friends, my brother Xavier, my teachers, and our home, the earth. Thank you.
Are you Juliana? Are you Juliana?
Yes.
Okay, hi.
Hello, parents, teachers, and board members. My name is Juliana Amadeo. I am 9 years old, and I'm a 4th grade student at Riverside School. For the past 2 years, I've been a member of Girl Scouts of Connecticut. During Girl Scout meetings, we learn and talk about to care for the environment. This year, our troop planned a field trip to Todd's Point for the beach cleanup, although the field trip was canceled. I was thinking about still going with my mom. That same day, I was having a play date with Maddie, and we decided to go together. We saw lots of plastic, but mostly styrofoam, in the woods part of Todd's Point. I was shocked to see how much garbage there was. If littering is against the law, why do people still do it? I guess this is a problem we have to battle. But it leads me to the big question. Why are materials still being made out of styrofoam and used by people for the matter? About 500 students go to Riverside School. Every day, about half of the students buy lunch, and I'm one of them. Aside from the fact that the lunch isn't that good, it is served on a styrofoam tray. Almost 500,000 styrofoam trays will be added to the waste stream each year from the Greenwich School cafeterias. The styrofoam trays are inexpensive. However, the less trash we have, the less we have to pay to remove it. Plus, Greenwich no longer recycles styrofoam, so all of the garbage literally becomes garbage. That ends up in our landfills. In addition, styrofoam is made out of chemicals that are proven to cause serious health problems. We eat off of these styrofoam trays, which means we are eating poison. The greener and the cleaner day and age, there is a better options that are safer for our environment and aren't made out of chemicals. I am here today to propose to Greenwich Public Schools to make a change for a better tomorrow. We can start by using trays that are either reusable or environmentally friendly. Styrofoam is getting into animals' mouths and polluting our earth. The world is slowly dying. We act now or never. Thank you for listening to me today. I hope we can make a change and stop the use of styrofoam trays.
All right, the next speaker is Joan Knudsen, followed by Ann Kraft.
Hi, I'm Joan Knudsen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Just wanted to touch base about graduation, and as Mr. Heavey said, the kids want to be together, and there needs to be a solution, whether you rent out Bridgeport Sound Tigers or SUNY Purchase or something, but the kids want to be together, they should be together, they spent 4 years together, they've worked hard for this day. So that's basically it. Thank you.
Ann Kraft, followed by Maureen Bonanno and Ann Fetch.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ann Kraft, and I'm the parent of a Greenwich High School senior. I hadn't really planned to speak to you today, but the event of the bleachers and graduation came up just a few days ago, and I felt it was important that at least a couple of parents get up and tell you what it means, not just to the students, but also to the parents. And I do applaud James' speech. I think he said it well. This is a culminating event for our seniors and their, not just their high school career, but really since kindergarten, that whole 13 years. It's important to them, but it's important to me too. I've watched my daughter go through this. I want to be there celebrating her, James, Alex, all of these kids. I want to see them all. And I know it's really unfortunate for them. The bleachers were condemned. Once they're condemned, I get it. That's it. We cannot risk the safety of this, but that's not their fault. They really deserve the traditional Greenwich High School ceremony that they've always had before they separate, go off to college, go off to jobs. So I understand this may be an unexpected expense for the town. How do we move it? I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I just wanted to implore you to recognize that this is a big issue. It's significant to us. So please do what you can to try to find a way to let our seniors graduate together. Thank you.
So next up are Maureen Bonanno and Ann Fetch, followed by Gabriel.
Good evening, Chairman Bernstein, Interim Superintendent Mayo, Board of Ed, and Cabinet members and community members. I'm Ann Fetch, and this is Maureen Bonanno. We're the GHS PTA co-presidents. First, we'd like to congratulate all the student athletes and the distinguished teachers that were honored here tonight. Next, we'd also just like to give you a little update on what a great PTA year we had. We kicked off the year with a really fun parent social, record-breaking membership drive, followed it up with off-the-chart attendance at all our PTA meetings. And through all that, we were able to fund all of our curriculum enrichment requests, diversity week programs. We purchased more comfortable chairs and end tables for the media center and added a really cool-looking charging station for the kids. We also funded 25 state-of-the-art virtual reality headsets, which will be used by all students, 10 veneer equipment cart and tracking systems for all the physics classes, and vaping detectors to deter students from picking up the highly addictive habit. We are proud of all of our accomplishments and honored to be here tonight with all of you to share them. We hope to end this year on a positive note and give the class of 2019 the chance to celebrate their accomplishments, to graduate as one class in their own school in one beautiful red and white ceremony. We are asking you to do whatever it takes to make this happen.
Okay, now at this point, I can tell you about all the times that the Greenwich High School PTA has advocated for making upgrades at Cardinal Stadium over the past years, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you a personal story of mine that I'll never forget. One day in June, about 12 years ago, I was driving down the post road with my twins, and it just so happened it was the Greenwich High School graduation. I was at the light, and I looked over, and I looked down, and I saw a beautiful display of red and white caps and gowns. And I turned to my kids with tears in my eyes, and I'll get them now, and I looked at, and I said, someday that's going to be you with all of your classmates. And I thought about how fortunate we were in this town to have, that setting and all the students together, and just a time to celebrate our kids. So they thought I was crazy because I was crying. They'll probably think I'm crazy that I actually mentioned this story, but it really, I think 12 years later, they understood. They understood. They graduated there. They understood the meaningfulness of that, graduating with their friends and all of their friends, all of their classmates, their teachers. So in one place, in their home where they were for 4 years. So let's give this class the opportunity to have this experience, to have other moms driving down the post road, reflecting on the future of their kids. And if you can, like Ann said, just do everything we can to have the graduation at Greenwich High School together, all the kids together, and make the best possible time for these kids. Thank you.
Gabriel, you're up next, and then Mary Flynn. Thank you for dressing for the occasion. I love it.
It'll probably be about that song.
One day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel Leslie. I am a 6th grader at Eastern Middle School. I'm a part of the Student Council Association where we discuss many ideas, stuff like that. You guys probably know what I mean. Yeah. You all attended, so yeah. I am here with these guys over here to support the idea that we should get rid of styrofoam trays. That was one of the ideas that we talked about at Student Council Association, and we have been bringing up a lot. Let's say a lot. All the ideas said here tonight were amazing, and I'm just here to lend a helping hand, let's say, to helping make the difference and hoping that we could do it in the next few years before I graduate middle school. Yeah. I mean, that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Like, seeing a change like that. Yeah. Thank you for your time and your time. All right, bye.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is Mary Flynn. Good luck, Mary. Following that will be Siri Davies.
A little difficult to follow, but thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm here to talk about the food program, and I know that they're considering outsourcing it, and to speak against that. And I know that the food program has a lot of difficulty. These numbers in the Board of Ed, first of all, in a year that everything else is going up, the food service has a 2% decrease, which I find surprising. When everybody's asking for better quality food, I completely think that you need big changes. And there's a lot of things you can do. You can get chefs in there. You can get, at not much, hopefully not much difference in the cost, in that you can have a program where the chefs can possibly make money on the side type thing. But all of your distinguished teachers talked about community and conviviality. And if you outsource the food, that's one of the main things in school, you'll lose a lot of that conviviality in the community. And I forget what else I was going to say. Sorry, I should have written it down. But I highly urge you not to outsource. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is Sally Davies. That's the last speaker we have signed up. If there's anybody that would like to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item, parents can check the sheets. If there's anybody after there are extra sheets, I'd ask you to line up over there underneath the monitor. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Sally Davis. I'm with the Greenwich Recycling Advisory Board. We work very closely with the Department of Public Works in educating the community about recycling and waste management initiatives. We also collaborate very closely with the PTA Council Green Schools, my colleague Julie Deschamps, who was just speaking. And I don't know that there's actually much I can add to everything that people have said before, particularly the youngsters who did a really good job. But I'm really here just to add our voice to support the phone-free school lunch initiative proposed by Green Schools, in which they advocate replacing the toxic styrofoam trays with the reusable serviceware. Styrofoam is made from petroleum, as everyone knows, a non-renewable resource. It also contains styrene, which is a chemical classified as a possible carcinogen. Green Schools has conducted an extensive research and prepared extremely detailed report, which I think you've had, citing their concerns and recommendations, and we definitely concurs with everything they've done. Styrofoam bans are sweeping across the country, and the fact that we can no longer recycle styrofoam in Greenwich or in Connecticut, in fact, probably in itself is surely is a reason to discontinue the use of these trays. We're always seeking ways to reduce the volume of trash and protect our environment. But however, surely of paramount importance here is the health and welfare of our students, which should not be compromised. So we urge you to give serious consideration to the proposals put forward by Green Schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, we've had 4 additional speakers sign up. So first is Neerland Pearson.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Mayo. I want to thank you for making the issue of styrofoams in our school a priority and putting it on the agenda today. As you may already know, I am co-chair of the PTAC Health and Wellness Committee. And although one of our main priorities has been improving the quality and nutritional value of the foods in our school lunchrooms, over the past year, this effort has been coupled with a push to remove styrofoam trays from the public school systems due to their toxic leaching in foods, waste, and environmental damage. It does us no good to improve the quality of the food if when we do that, we're going to place it on toxic ware. As noted by previous speakers, countless hours by volunteers have gone in to get to the conclusion that the most fiscally responsible, environmentally responsible, and best public health option are reusable stainless steel trays with the use of dishwashers. As such, I ask on behalf of the PTAC Health and Wellness Committee and its members that you vote to invest in dishwashers and reusable stainless trays for all Greenwich schools. This request goes to the heart of our community, the health and wellness of our students. Let's be leaders in our state. Let's take the initiative and provide the necessary resources to make Greenwich a foam-free school district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is Sonia Tembeck, followed by Clerk O'Gallon. Sonia? It's okay. I was worried I was reading it wrong, so.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say that I'm also in favor of eliminating the foam trays for our students. I'm a PTA member and a member of the Health and Wellness Committee, and again, as everybody has already said, it's not good for our environment or our students or their health, and we need to get rid of them. The foam trays are unacceptable, and nobody can really argue that. It needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next up is Clerk O'Gallon, followed by Matthew Wendling.
Good evening. I'm actually pretending to be Abby Large right now. She asked me to present for her, so I'm going to read her remarks and then I'm going to add my thoughts. I wish I could address you in person, but I'm committed to attending my son Lance Large's last lacrosse game against New Canaan. He was supposed to be honored here tonight for track as well, and I thank you for his recognition. You are our elected officials. You have been entrusted to make sure the children's best interest comes first and foremost. Please embrace the countless volunteers who have put in countless more hours rolling up their sleeves to find solutions to ending the styrofoam tray problem and ways to make sure children are fueling their growing bodies with nutrient-dense foods. Tonight, please lead our town into making the right choices for our children. Respect the data provided to you to do this. In reading the budget report presented at the BET meeting, what stood out year after year is the fact that the topic of food services, what fuels children's bodies and brains for optimal performance, is only a paragraph within the entire meeting. The following was not mentioned. 1, participation in the school lunch program is down while enrollment is up. I've sent you the data earlier today proving this. 2, 44% of free and reduced children are not taking lunch. Why is that? This data point should bother you enough to have an answer to what is behind this number. Your goal is to close the achievement gap, so seeing this number should compel you to find out what is happening and what is fueling their brains and bodies. 3, for those paying students, food services is making a lot of their revenue selling cookies, ice cream, and chips, and they know it. It totally negates anything healthy when presented to a child. Why can't we have an all-inclusive meal with healthy snacks included? The main course is not appetizing, and a majority of a la carte items are not healthy. 4, lastly, as a member of the School Lunch Fund Committee, we heard clearly what you are looking for as a board. We are looking at other vendors to help us move this forward. We are coming up with multiple options to vet to send you a full report for next month's meeting. Now I'll take off my Abby wig. The students said it well. I think obviously the styrofoam is just a no-brainer. The issue is the food and the palatability of the main course being offered. I can tell you from my children who have a variety of appetites that they don't eat the food. One of the students said earlier that lunch, quote, isn't that good. I wrote that down. Lunch isn't that good.
30 seconds.
That is 180 days times 13 years of isn't that good. That is 2,340 days divided by 365. 6 years of food that isn't that good. That's not good enough. We should be making a significant change. There's been some incremental changes over the years, and there needs to be a significant overhaul to the main courses being offered and getting input as to what the students want and will eat. And it's long overdue. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, Matthew Wendling, I know we've got one speaker already. If there's anybody else that wishes to address the board, please line up over there so we can keep track. Thank you. Good, Matthew.
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Weinling. I'm a senior at GHS, and I feel like in these 4 years, one of the things been cemented, drilled into me, because we're in the biggest class I think ever at GHS, is that everyone has an opinion on everything. More specifically, everyone has an opinion on any little issue that will affect the entire student body. And more often than not, I feel like these issues that come up that affect every single person in the entire student body, it's pretty controversial. There's a lot of one side, the other side, another side. What's been interesting about the whole styrofoam trays debate to me is that I haven't heard a single student who's been for keeping the styrofoam trays. Usually we have these opinions, we have these giant debates and there's people screaming at each other from one side and the other side. I haven't heard one person mention the styrofoam trays being something, yeah, we should keep that. I think that's good for our school. I think it really stems from the fact that we're in class, right? It's a Board of Ed meeting, so we're talking about the school. We're in school and we're in class and we're learning about the carcinogens coming out of the styrofoam trays and all this. And then 20 minutes later we have to go and eat out of the styrofoam trays that we've been learning is very bad in our classes. It's just interesting to think about and just percolate on. So yeah, I don't have any facts or any statistics, just basically voicing, I feel like there's real consensus in the student body on this issue, almost making it a non-issue in that sense. And yeah, thank you.
If you wouldn't mind stating your name, just so we don't have you.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Cooper, and I have a senior that's graduating this year. And if I could just ask the board to consider the possibility of doing temporary bleachers. I received 3 quotes today. It's very reasonable in terms of costs. You could house 1,500 individuals for a cost of $15.28 per person. And it just is, the high school is where these kids should be together to graduate. I know some other options off campus have been suggested and petitions are out there, but I do feel if we can consider the possibility of temporary bleachers being set up on the track, it's very feasible, and I'd like that to be considered. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Please state your name.
My name is Brian Peldunas, and I've been a long time pain in the butt of the Board of Education, I guess I can say that, but also interested in ALP. And I spoke with the young folks who presented the question or the comments about ALP and got the 3 problems and tried to do them myself. And I can understand why a lot of the 10th graders only got 1 of the 3 correct. There is no solution to one of the problems, and the other one is so poorly worded. There's 2 possible interpretations, and both of them need no solutions. So there's only one that, and I got it right, there is only one that can be solved. So if that is a reflection of what we are testing, it's probably a poor reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else that wishes to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item? Oh, all right, come on down. And again, if you could state your name, thank you.
Josephine Amadeo. Good evening. Tonight we attended the board meeting because really our daughter Juliana, who spoke earlier about the styrofoam trays, she has, been willing to speak up to fight for her school, for her classmates, and for her health. At home, we eat organic. I teach her how to cook. She cooks with me. We buy organic. We use metal straws, stainless steel cups. And, you know, we try to promote that at home, and healthy eating is a big thing at home. And then we're new to Riverside, and we came last year, and I was thrilled with the lunch program when I read about it. And over the past couple of years, I think that I may have been misled about the school lunch. It's presented in a way that it's delicious and healthful, that fruit is served alongside with the meals and veggies are offered. But oftentimes she comes home telling me about the yummy cookies and ice cream that she's had, and that's okay. We give our children, plenty of opportunities to have dessert, but I think as parents, we put our trust and faith in the school system to take care of our kids, and we put a lot of emphasis on test scores and performance, but we know as adults that if we're not eating well and if we're not feeling well, then we're not performing well. So I just wanted to speak to you tonight. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for listening to our daughter. She is making us very proud, and we're happy to be here, and we'd like to continue to be happy to be here and stay. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's no other comments, we're going to move on to our monthly reports. The first report is the superintendent's report. So, Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Peter. As part of my superintendent's report, I want to update the board on Opportunity Block. As you know, in May of 2018, the board delegated to the then Superintendent Gilday and the administration the responsibility to implement an Opportunity Block within the framework of the established school day to be effective within the 2018-19 school year. Given the limited time to implement this responsibility and the impending summer break, the superintendent and the administration were not able to provide stakeholders, teachers, administrators, parents, and students the same opportunity for input in the planning of the Opportunity Block for the 18-19 school year as would normally have been the case. Planning and implementing the activities of the Opportunity Block has been ongoing. We recognize that a review of the current implementation of Opportunity Block and consideration of changes for the 19-20 school year may be beneficial. With the assistance of an external consultant, the administration will establish a process for eliciting input from stakeholders on possible changes to Opportunity Block, including focus groups and surveys. In particular, we will ensure the GEA president is consulted on the process, including providing an opportunity to review any survey before it is sent to the various stakeholders. The superintendent and the administration will establish a committee of stakeholders, including teachers appointed by the GEA, to consider such input and make recommendations to the superintendent and the administration as to potential changes to the OB for the 19-20 school year. After consideration of the recommendations of that committee, the superintendent and the administration shall report back to the board and the GEA on any changes that we'll be making for the 19-20 school year. I'm excited to announce that Greenwich Public Schools is about to launch the GPS iSchool, an online learning academy, a component of the Greenwich Strategic Plan roadmap to provide anytime, anywhere learning. Phase one of the implementation will begin with providing credit recovery options to invited learners now to the end of the school year. The credit recovery component of iSchool is designed to keep students who are at risk of not graduating on time with their same age peers. Credit recovery through iSchool is available to learners who have failed a course or lost credit in a course due to attendance. The future of iSchool is to provide anytime, anywhere learning opportunities for all students. iSchool Greenwich is an option made available by the teacher, principal, or building team when determining which resources can meet the needs of a content, space, learning design, or learner, or group of learners. The instructional framework will include blended learning content modules, face-to-face and online learning, online learning through the approved courseware, teacher and student learning partnerships, i.e. conferring opportunities, and demonstration of mastery. High School Greenwich Online Academy will be accessible through the school-issued devices anytime, anywhere. All students accessing iSchool will participate in an iSchool orientation prior to beginning the coursework. And finally, just to speak for a second to the Greenwich High School students and families out there, we have all intentions of having Greenwich High School's graduation at the same place at the same time for all students. Thank you, Peter.
I guess we'll be discussing that a little bit more when we talk about the bleachers. Yeah, okay, very good. Just a guess. All right, report, Mr. Scherer.
Ralph, is there, maybe I missed it, did we already get sent more information about iSchool? Did we already get it? No, what he just said is I-school. My question was, did we get a discrete description of that whole thing? And you're saying it, Irene, it was buried inside the, what was provided? Was it a paragraph, or was it a whole report, or was there a full description, or what was in the?
There we go. We can provide the overview
What
with a
was in
further
the-
description,
what
but we
was in
did
the-
provide it as an update within the strategic plan update presented February 21st. It was part of our where we were, where we are now, and where we were going. So we can recirculate that as well as the overview.
I think it's great. I mean, I stumbled into the scenario where there were 5 different programs. There was Odyssey, where Rick could tell you what they all were. They were on this list. And the other thing that was interesting about it is the original was all remedial. It was all focused on remedial. So it was only focused on one slice of students. And I'm thrilled that we have something new, but I'm very curious to see how it's aligning to all of our learners at the high school and how that fits. So if someone could send some more information, since you brought it up. It sounds like you've also consolidated it all to one program instead of using 4 or 5 different vendors. Is that a fair?
For this phase 1, that is correct.
Okay. So we're not continuing with the other ones?
No, we are as part of a whole comprehensive approach, but right now specifically, we identified the need. And again, this was part of the update at the end of last year to, again, provide multiple pathways for students to graduate on time with their same age peers. So this is phase 1 of that work.
Great. Thank you. I'd look forward to see that document. Thanks.
All right, so moving on to reports of officers, committees, and liaisons. Ms. Rabin.
So I'll just give a very brief update, just to make sure for the Food Services Committee update that there was a little paragraph. So the whole document was about the styrofoam trays and the dishwashers, and then the comparison of the different options. But the committee met twice since our last board meeting, and we're still on track discussing piloting a food services management company, both a traditional company as well as something more innovative like No Fuss Lunch, which interestingly enough has been hired by another school in the town of Greenwich, as well as a consultant to help identify ways to improve and be more efficient. And then the subcommittee of the Food Services Committee putting together some menu options so that when we do pilot something, we've got some ideas on the type of food that we want to pilot. I think the sense of the meeting from Food Services and all of our minutes, we've finally approved them, so they should be up on the website, is that we want to learn from these different pilot options and not looking to do a wholesale outsourcing. And also the sense of the meeting was that there really are no financial and health options to styrofoam and to go with the trays and the dishwashers in all schools. It's just the timing of that and when we would want to because it's more than likely going to need to be an appropriation if we don't build it into not the 1920, we'd have to build it into the 2021, and we all felt that that's not, again, a sense of the meeting, we didn't vote on it, that's a long time to wait.
The reports of committees, Dr. Francis.
Curriculum, we've got the 2 textbooks that are coming, and then we had a further discussion about actually what you brought up at the earlier dinner about the vision of graduate capacities and the K-12 component of that, and we're moving forward on really solidifying that component of it. Policy, obviously, we've got the stuff we're looking at tonight. The other thing that we're collecting is just some data on when we get results back from various tests and what are absolutely required reports, so we can really think about that actually as we're talking about on our goals, sort of in terms of how do we want to look at our plans for next year to try and really allow us the time to do the deep dives that we're interested in. In our strategic plan meeting, we went through and really looked at the tiles very carefully, looked at the goals really carefully, and I think the big piece that came back, which I think fits into the goals for next year as well, is sort of the concept of we want this strategic plan to fully run its course. We need to keep working on those goals, but we also think that next year is a really good time for us to evaluate and see, where things could be tweaked, what kinds of things have we learned from the first part as we look into going to the next year, whether that's just an iteration of this one or whether it's a change. That's of course a board decision, but at least to try and learn as much as we can from the current one to help us as we make the decisions moving forward. And then, Alliance, also the Growing Strong Readers, I'll just put another plug in, the dates were given earlier by a speaker.
Ms. Olson.
DTAC, congratulations to the 6 distinguished teachers. The date that's been mentioned, but just a reminder, May 7th at 4:30 at Central Middle School will be the Distinguished Teachers Awards ceremony. It's family and friends, and the whole community is invited, so please go help them celebrate because it is a really big honor.
And thank you to Megan for representing the board on that committee. It's a lot of work. Also really rewarding to read about the great teachers we have. So thank you. Just a quick chair update. All board members received the schedules for the RTM district and committee meetings. Please definitely take a look at that against your calendars. If you have a conflict, email back to the group and we'll figure out how to get that covered. And I believe Lori is going to be circulating some talking points. Coming soon to a theater near you. Yep, all right. And that's about it. All right, so we're going to move on to our discussion items. The first item is the Honors Physics textbook proposal. Ms. Parisi.
Good evening. In your packet, you do have our recommendation for the Inspire Physics textbook as a primary instructional resource for the Greenwich High School Honors Physics course. This was presented at Curriculum Council on April 9th. With me this evening are Sheila Saval, our STEM coordinator, and John DeLuca, the program administrator for science at the high school. Again, like all textbooks, they go through a significant vetting process, and that was reviewed with Curriculum Council. We will have copies of the textbook that will be left as you go through your reads. You can review those at Havemeyer, and I believe we also have some logins to the e-text portion of the textbook for your review before we speak about approval and adoption at our future board meeting. So if you have any questions, we can answer them.
Ms. Rabin.
It's marked off that this is new, not a replacement. What's being used as the educational resource right now?
I will need to call on John DeLuca to just refresh. You can come over here. Thank you.
So we're currently using a textbook in the class, but it's outdated. And the most important piece of why it's outdated is because the state has moved on to the NGSS standards, and the textbook that we currently have in place just doesn't support that.
Ms. Dayton.
I was intrigued and encouraged in the critical thinking section that you can customize content to the student. Could you describe that a little bit so we envision what that entails?
Well, I think it gives teachers opportunities. There's really a lot of content there that they can choose and use. I have the online resources. I will say that the online resources, they're still building this textbook out, something I spoke about at our curriculum council meeting. And so we have copies of the full textbook, both teacher edition and the student edition. I think the teacher edition will really present you with a lot of that different customizable material that the teachers can utilize to really personalize what kind of experience that they want for the students. So let me give you an example. One would be if there was a particular lab, for example, that you want to do in class, then you can go and do it, and then there's a mechanism by which to collect that data. If instead you wanted to have a more digital version of that lab, then data would be presented to students and they could utilize it that way. So it's that sort of thing where it kind of gives teachers a lot of flexibility with their students.
So I noticed under CASA says there's 225 6-year subscription ebooks, but only 25 hardcover books. So I know we've started to make this move in the direction of not having physical books, but can you explain the logic between the numbers?
The logic with the 25 classroom books, teachers still like to have what we call classroom sets. And so that would really serve the purpose there. Periodically, also, there are students who really require the hardcover textbook or certainly prefer and have a really good argument so that we would provide the textbooks to them in those cases. But the online platform, I mean, the benefits there, obviously you have the full integrated e-text. So by integrated, I mean that there's multiple links that can be clicked, etc. But there's a lot of other resources there for students in terms of practice problems and that sort of thing. So I think that that online textbook subscription provides that to students.
Just a follow-up about the cost. Is this something that we're buying with funds from this current budget or future budget? And is there money in the line, I guess, is the question. And there's money appropriated for that already in there?
Correct.
Mr. Scher.
I want to go back to what Ms. Dayton asked you, John, and the answer, because I was a little concerned with the answer. Yeah. Your description of personalization was teacher personalizing content for them for their class. It wasn't personalized each individual student.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, so...
that's not, the reason I'm bringing it up is...
Sure.
I've worried about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been on this personalized learning journey, and I worry a lot that it's a edu-speak buzz phrase that we don't all have a clear picture of what
Right.
that is and what that means as a goal.
Right.
And so I was curious how you...
Yeah, no, I can answer.
Because what I would think, the goal that I would be looking for with this is giving kids tools beyond just what we used to have, which is I can take a textbook and now I can go scroll through it online, right? Actual things that are personalized to them, content that is personalized to them based upon how they're interacting, what assessments they're taking.
Yeah.
So using the old part.
One of the ways, I mean, so there's lots of ways, and
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. One of the other things that textbooks will do, and I'm going to check to make sure that this particular one is, because it's something that
You need to
really
do one
all of the
anyway.
online textbooks that we've adopted over the last couple of years have done. That is personalized. Is what they will do is when you assess students, once the students take that assessment, the students will get basically a response in terms of how they performed on it, but it gives them follow-up questions. So I use it in my class, for example, where if the student gets a particular score that's under a threshold, then it will give them follow-up questions that were specific to the ones that they got wrong. Right. And so that to me is probably a better example of how these textbooks can be more personalized.
I guess what I was trying to ask, that's personalized testing, it's great. I didn't know we had that, that's fantastic. I was thinking more in terms of I don't know. This is probably a longer conversation. I'll save it for another day. But
Well, it might be helpful if you look at priority 4 under learner engagement, where we've included more detail with regard to the online platform and what the students can actually do as they're interacting with the text, and also what the teacher can do. So maybe that might help clarify a bit, but we can provide more detail beyond that.
Okay, I'll read that again. Thank you.
Ms. Stowe.
Hi, just a quick question, John. Will we be seeing a lot more of needed replacements because of the new NGSS standards? Is physics just sort of the first one we're seeing?
It's a great question. So the biology books that we have are sufficient. I wouldn't say they're fantastic, but they're sufficient. The chemistry books we actually purchased with NGSS in mind. So those were purchased recent enough so that there was no NGSS when we purchased the biology book. So, but we've been able to make do with those. The physics, this was the right time, A, because like I said, they're outdated, and B, because of the fact that there are changes in the physics curriculum, and it's helpful to have a textbook that represents that, and this textbook certainly does.
Dr. Francis.
Actually, I was just going to add another point, which is I asked in curriculum committee, we're not actually replacing the AP books, for example, though, because that's its own separate sort of curriculum, so it's only a portion of them.
All right, anything else on the physics textbook? Ms. Scher.
Are students required in this, John? Do all physics teachers that we're going to use this text, are they required to use this, whatever it's called, integrated science notebook?
Are they required to use the
Are they required to use it with the students? So when we get this thing, they won't be able to opt out of that. They'll have to use that.
The
teacher.
The
If you
teacher.
have to say, with the kids, this is a part of the curriculum tools they use, and
Right.
therefore every teacher who's teaching the course that this goes with is going to use
with that particular resource.
Is that the plan?
We haven't dug that deep yet, to be quite honest.
Because this is great that there's all these integrated tools. I mean, this is fantastic if you read it. Thank you, Irene, for pointing us back to this. And then the question, and my natural question is how much of this can we be certain are leveraged in class?
In the classrooms, sure. Well, as we
Because that's the
continue,
whole idea.
as we continue to embed this into what we're doing, I mean, we're still, learning about this textbook. Obviously, we obviously will be able to answer that question more fully.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Good luck.
All right, if there's nothing else, thank you, Mr. Luca, for that. We're going to move on to the German textbook proposal.
Again, we have the login information, so we'll distribute that to you so you can log in from now until the next.
Yes, because I want to study physics.
I am sure you can. Okay, so the next textbook proposal as a primary instructional resource is the German textbook. I am not going to say it in German. It's there for you. This was discussed at length at the Curriculum Council meeting on April 9th with Margaret Callahan, and she is with us this evening to answer further questions, as is Adrian Hirsch-Klein, our languages program coordinator. So I guess we'll begin with Margaret. She is a world language teacher in our district. So if you have any questions, we can begin there.
Ms. Rabin.
So reading these back to back, because I always read the agenda in order, the way that this was rated seemed to be a little bit different than the other one. So reading a lot around the different priorities versus ample, moderate, and so a little color, maybe not tonight, but a little bit more color than ample, moderate.
Sure, we can revise that for the discussion at the next meeting, unless there's something in particular you'd like to do.
Other questions? Dr. Francis.
It's actually not a question, but I think we'll probably get the link for this one too, and I have to admit I had a lot of fun because you can go in there and you can link and you can hear them say stuff in German. I don't speak any German. You can listen to it, and they have some amazing videos and things and all kinds of other resources that are available as part of this, which are really fantastic.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. We look forward to taking that up as an action item and studying a little German in the meantime.
Again, we'll have separate login
If you
information
can pronounce
for you.
Atiengesellschaft, you're happy. There you go, that's my German. All right, next up, the secondary schools revisioning update. Ms. Parisi.
So, yes, in your packet, you have the secondary schools revisioning update. In the, what was included is just a background information as to why we began this work with the project plan. As stated in the background, Dr. Gilday had charged the administration to engage in the research and development with an external partner and representative team of the high school to look at how we can revision or vision our secondary schools 6 through 12, and we began this work at the high school. We've been working all year with our external partner and the team, and Rick Piotrowski leading the work with the team. And this work is ongoing and present. No plans have been finalized. Again, we're in that research phase. This also came about with the idea of what the next generation schools and facility plan would look like and what that would mean for Greenwich High School.
Questions? Dr. Francis.
So unless I missed it, as I was reading through, it looks like in March, there were 2 to 3 focal areas developed that would then sort of guide things for the June meeting. Are those focal areas described in this report?
No, that's part of still the discussion. We're trying to make that determination, and by the end of the year, Mr. Piotrowski said that we'll have more understanding of where we're going to go, what we can implement or propose as an implementation for next year.
Ms. Dayton.
I want to congratulate you and encourage you to keep going with those subcommittees, one on mental health and one on career and technical education. That is so important, and it's been many years before we've been able to make progress on those 2 items, but I'm so glad it's underway, so thank you.
You are welcome.
So I've got a whole bunch of questions about this because I really was a little confused about the origin of the report. I was trying to figure out, was it driven by something we did? I know you said in the report that it was from Dr. Gilday, but when this came up at our agenda planning, I asked what this was because I really don't think I understand it, and I'm seeing a couple of nodding heads, so maybe you want to take a deep step back and maybe lay the foundation for us.
So as part of the agenda planning last year, and I think that's how it came at this date as a written report, as an update. Again, I tried to give you as much background in the overview as what we were charged with doing. I'm not sure how, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's just some confusion. Maybe Mr. Sher, why don't you take a stab?
This is what happens when you change your superintendent every 30 seconds. The thing I'm lost in this conversation, Irene, is obviously Dr. Gilday commissioned this thing. Obviously, she asked you guys to go away and do a bunch of work. Obviously, she, I don't know who decided, somebody great, decided we're going to do use great schools as a partner. I remember Bill, for those who've been around long enough, Chris and Bill McCursey used to talk about great schools. The thing that's lost for me here is, we did this whole thing on middle schools. Ralph, you were in the middle of that, right? There was a whole visioning thing there. I remember Jill kind of, coming around and saying, hey, by the way, based on my experience, personalized learning, blah, 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 we may need to think about the high school and how to change that and so on and so forth. But I never remembered actually Jill coming and saying, okay, I'm going to turn that actually into a project. Maybe the rest of you remember it. I don't. And by the way, I'm going to spin up a team and we're going to go look within this remit. The thing that I'm a little lost in with this is this could be a really good thing to do. The thing that I would be thinking about is I think this winds up connecting to our strategic plan. It winds up connecting to board level vision, so on and so forth. And I think it winds up connecting to, also candidly, I'd want to have a really stable leadership team, which is not quite where we are, although we're going to kind of get there. So before we embarked on something like this, I wouldn't have suggested doing this without clarity around a really stable team. We got a lot of interims right now, not that everybody isn't working real hard, but so I don't want to throw cold water on this thing, but I'm a little bit, I'm not clear what the project is. I get worried when I see stuff that says partial implementation fall 2019, which is like next week. So this, I don't have clarity around this project, and as I say, maybe I'm the only one who doesn't have clarity around this project, but it seems to me, I'd like to get some more clarity on the project so I could be more helpful in supporting it, even if it means not holding to this schedule. That's where kind of my head is, but as I say, I don't want to throw cold water on a bunch of people who've obviously been working for a while trying to get some things done either. But that's what's on my mind. I don't know if everybody else is there.
Ms. Stowe?
Well, I'm happy to see that you were equally confused, because I was thinking that maybe it was just that I didn't have the history. But maybe Rick, would you mind telling us a little bit about what we're, or, sorry to put you in the hot seat, but I feel like you could explain it to us.
And I just want to assure you that we have a very stable team at the high school that were charged. There was a charge that was issued to form the committee of the members from the high school. So,
I'm sorry, what I meant was, I guess the board's pretty stable right now, but that may change. We've had rotation at the top with the super, right? And then, we lost our long-standing headmaster. I realize you and Elian's been here 2 or 3 years now, so that's some stability. You've been here like 7 or 8, I guess, and you've been here God knows how long. The guy actually making the thing run behind the scenes. So that's what I meant.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure.
It's not just you guys.
Sure.
And I realize down where the rubber meets the road, where none of us matter, right? They actually matter. There's tremendous stability. So I just want to clarify what I meant by that.
Sure. Thank you. So the question for Rick was to clarify.
Well, keep in mind, in terms of, we have 4 subcommittees that are running parallel at this given moment. And a lot of the work we've been doing all year has really been about research. Research, site visits, and we report out about every 2 or 3 months to get every subcommittee to make sure we're aligned in terms of we're not duplicating our research and everything like this. For most of this stuff is that we are spending most of this year to research to develop a plan to implement really in 2021. And that's when we'd start getting, like next year, what exactly we're going to do, start get stakeholders involved, get the Board of Ed involved and everything like that. Basically, what do we want Greenwich Heights to look like in 2 or 3 years? Like there's some sub-goals for 1 or 2 years from now, then maybe 8 or 10 years from now. That's what we're trying to do with the visiting.
But is this just the high school? Because it says 6 through 12.
Well, I'll let Irene address that.
All right, Ann.
All right.
So our original charge from Dr. Gilday was to, former person, was to do 6 through 12. So we started out with that, but then when we met with the high school last year and with the committee, we realized that that was too much to chew off at one time. So that's why we determined that we would have to bring the middle school on at least after this year and even perhaps the following year. But maybe the middle of next year is what we're thinking, depending on what we get through these committees, these 4 subcommittees, and then we'll move forward because it has to be a 6 through 12, and really eventually it's K through 12.
So that's why we're doing it in this manner, but because of the new graduation requirements, this was a perfect time to start.
Ms. Rabin.
So I'm confused because I think everything should be in the context of the strategic plan and what problem are we trying to solve to go out and revision something, not saying that it's a bad idea, but without in the context of the problem that we're trying to solve and how it ultimately nests up to the strategic plan, which we all talked about in our last meeting, that we don't want to see that change in the next year, maybe even 2 years, without, maybe some of the tweaks, but the direction sort of remaining the same. And I just feel like we've been in initiative overload, and we might be missing some really important things that we should be working on, doing some of this work that's not connected to the strategic plan.
Ms. Dayton.
I just wanted to, again, if it wasn't very clear, the vision of the graduate is front and center with all of this work, and that actually has been the backdrop with every committee conversation and meeting. So everything's in service of the vision of the graduate, which is, again, front and center in the strategic plan. So all of those subcommittees have that as a backdrop.
Ms. Dayton.
So here's how I interpreted this beginning. Personalized learning can't take place unless you have mastery-based learning. The way you get mastery-based learning is loosening up some of those high school graduation timings, getting away from seat time, moving through the grades at your pace. That obviously means that the high school can't graduate a cohort that's been together since kindergarten if part of that cohort is ready to move on to college. That's the ultimate destination, is mastery-based learning and setting your own pace, perhaps having an early college experience in 11th grade instead of completing our curriculum. That's where I thought you were going with this.
Absolutely. So in the subcommittee, the first one with the curriculum, the course of studies, along with the CTE or developing future professionals, whatever you want to call it, action plan, again, align with those policies of multiple pathways, and not only pathways to graduation, but pathways for career development and so on. Additionally, to get to competency-based or mastery-based understanding, we've been digging in deep into the grading practices at the high school and where are we right now and where do we see ourselves going. So all of that has been part of these conversations.
So Irene, there's a mention in here of a June 2018 vision study. Did you mean 2019, or is this something that's already completed? Project deliverables about 4 down or 5 down.
I'm kind of lost.
So it's the research on future study-ready schools, and then there's a parenthetical. Ongoing will be summarized in the June 2018 vision study. So was there?
I think this was part of our work with the team, again. Oh, right. That was the, so that was the part of the original plan to get us where we were with Dr. Winters, Ann, and myself. So that was part of the original work. And we had completed that visioning team. So that's before we sent the charge out to form the committee. So that is passed.
Okay, and you said the charge went out, I think it said in here, it went out to
Last
all the teachers.
year.
All the teachers at the high school. So what was the response like?
The response of the charge.
On the charge, it's been pretty much with respect to the subgroups at this time, with the subcommittees at this, and we've been trying to report out like an LPC when it's appropriate there.
Mr. Chair.
As a general direction, this could be a totally positive thing, and it will be a positive thing. I'm where Ms. Dayton is, which is, if it's great to talk about the vision of the graduate. That's kind of like saying, do you agree with the Bill of Rights? And the answer is always going to be yes, right? But there's something between the Bill of Rights and a federal regulation written in the federal code, right? And I feel like we have to get to a place where we break this down and go from, instead of going from 50,000 feet to like grading policy, which is 100 feet, right? There has to be a process by which we move through those elevations quite effectively. And The suggestion that I would make is if we want to continue this and embark on this or make it more valuable and useful, we have to find a way to take that kind of 50,000 foot, and then we need to come together as a group. I think the board has to be involved in that to help say, okay, what is 50,000? Okay, what does it look like at 30,000? What does it look like at 20,000? And then probably the board can get out and the administration can take it from 20 to 10 to 5 to 100. I'm worried about this because I think it's great you guys are talking about grading policy and SEL and what have you. That just felt like that jumped from something super high to something super low. And if we don't build a consensus in the middle amongst all of us, the administration and the board should play its proper role, here's what I fear will happen. You'll just give us a proposal. You'll be coming to, and this is the habit we probably need to break, right? It'll be a proposal from the administration, and the board will be in the position of yes or no, up or down. And that's probably not the best way to interact with us, particularly on something as strategic as saying, I'm going to take probably one of the most important elements of my educational program, the high school, and talk about transforming that into, you know, to what it could be or should be at 2021. Because it's a pretty big change from how we've done it over a long period of time. Could be, maybe, may not. I think you got to figure out a way to have more workshops or something to fill in that, to make this whole process as valuable as it could be. Just my thought.
Dr. Francis.
Totally agree. I mean, when I read this, I sort of had to first get over my surprise and a little bit of confusion and sort of the feeling of, okay, did I forget something? Did I miss something? When did we talk about this? This seems like a really great big thing. So I started with the question of, do we have the three things? Because I was just trying to get a better handle on kind of where are we and where am I going to try and kind of fit into this process now? But I can't agree more that, I mean, I feel like, you know, this sounds like a great project, but I would have loved to have seen the project plan in the beginning. I think it would be great to have, you know, the high, the middle, the kind of where are we heading a little bit more. And I agree that, it sounds to me like it matches into the strategic plan, but I think that needs to be fully evident. I agree that, I agree with everything that's been said.
So I guess let me just pile on. I think a great idea might be, given we're building out the calendar for next year, maybe what we do is develop one of our early non-public meetings, like a workshop. And in the meantime, no, I mean, not a public business meeting, but a retreat. It's an open meeting, don't worry. But the idea of having a deeper dive at that point, giving you an opportunity to pull together your resources in a way that makes sense, that will help educate us, and then we can have that conversation to make sure we're all moving in the same direction. In the meantime, I guess what I would say is, you know, while we have a transition of leadership coming up, and it's actually a great opportunity because Mr. Mayo will be at the high school and Dr. Jones will be in the superintendency and the team over here. So maybe using part of the transition for Dr. Jones, this may be helpful in that transition. So,
Peter, just a couple of comments. Obviously, we can slow down some of the work. But I'm hoping that there are some small tweaks that are not going to be big picture-wise that I would like to go forward with here on this. Some obviously for next year, some small tweaks, maybe little bigger tweaks, but big picture, we can slow that process down and get everyone back up on speed and on the same wavelength there. But I don't want to slow down some things that I think are important for Greenwich High School students starting for next year.
No, I don't think there's anybody here, I've seen shaking heads, there's nobody here that wants to derail you from continuing down that path, and then we can work on the big picture together. Ms. Olson.
I'm just adding, I haven't spoken much because I agree with everything that's been said, but Mr. P, I also just want to say.
Talking, thank you.
Well, no, I agree with everything that's been said. I don't need to keep piling on, but there's no doubt in my mind that you do great work. You know, when you go in and visit and the site visits and, you know, that there's no doubt in my mind that you're making some really amazing incremental changes, and keep up that great work. In terms of this, I fully agree. It's a great idea to for the transition, to be able to use it in that regard. But doesn't mean do nothing. It just means like this is confusing, I think, to all of us. So
we're getting level set. All right, if there's no other comments, just to wrap it up, we look forward to sitting down, all of us, in the fall. Mr. Chair, before I wrap up.
I have one question for you, which is, in order to keep them marching forward, is there something they need from us between now and June, something they need us to see? And I mean, Rick is talking about changes he needs to we don't get in the way of. I don't even know what those are.
Can we go back?
Is there something we need to put as a placeholder on the calendar so that if they need something from us, so progress does not stop, it's already on the calendar for June or our last meeting or whatever? No? Okay, fine.
We can always add to the agenda at Ralph's request.
Yeah, I was going to say if we could meet, but yeah, if we can come back to you.
Okay, so just to wrap it up then, what we will do is plan to try to get that on our agenda plan for next year for the fall, so very early on. And then also this would be part of the transition discussion because we'll have the right players at the table. All right, so our next item on the agenda is the Food Services Committee updates. And Ms. O'Donnell.
Hello. The committee continues to explore options for improving the quality of food in our schools, and Ms. Rabin already provided an update on some of that work, so I'm going to skip through that piece. I do want to take an opportunity to remind everyone that this is the first year since 2005 that Food Services has a positive fund balance, $156,000. For the 1920 budget, this is the second year in a row, we are reducing the historical town of Greenwich subsidy of $600,000. Last year, we reduced it to $240,000, and for FY20, we're going to be further reducing it to $170,000. I believe this fiscal transformation helps to prepare us for the next stage of reimagining our program to meet the newest standards and expectations we now know, like local sourcing, sustainability, and optimal nutrition, to name a few. In this evening's packet, I have included information about a transition from styrofoam trays to stainless steel trays. The memo summarizes the currently pending legislation to ban styrofoam trays in the schools. In addition, the PTA Council Green Schools Committee has done extensive work on the hazards of polystyrene and molded fiberwares. They also, in collaboration with our Food Services Department, conducted a pilot on paper boat alternatives, which proved challenging both in portability and space. The report goes on to document the benefits of reusable ware and presents the positive outcomes of the COSCOB waste reduction pilot. At this time, and within the current budget, we plan to test the use of stainless steel trays at New Lab. New Lab currently has a dishwasher that provides us with an opportunity to establish efficiencies and to continue looking at the installation needs at the other schools over the next several weeks. We hope to use this information to refine our financials and would then look for funding no later than late May and June to move forward with the larger project of installing dishwashers district-wide. While this would require an interim appropriation per town charter, we would essentially be asking to use the fund balance to support this initiative. The Director of Food Services is here, John Hopkins, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have on the documents we've submitted.
Dr. Francis.
I tried to go through the numbers. So first of all, I think we should get rid of styrofoam trays. I'm not arguing that point, but I do think I would like to understand the numbers for what we're asking and what we're expecting. Unless I misunderstood, it seems to me that the yearly cost is a slight savings, but not enough to get anywhere close to overcoming the initial startup cost of the $130,000. Right, so I mean, I've heard a few people say this is going to save us money, but it's not going to save us money, right?
On an annual basis, we do expect some savings. Please keep in mind that this is an estimate this time. What is difficult for us to know, and we also haven't gone out to bid, is what the cost of installation will be for a dishwasher at each school, and that could add up. It just depends on how difficult that'll be. So we do need to get some more information through the bidding process. And the other thing that it hasn't factored in is the potential for any reduction in hauling. So that's something that we still need to look at as well. Again, this is a preliminary estimate. Follow up
So that was going to be the second part of the question, is in terms of the town side or the hauling side, is there additional savings, and do we have any sense, and it sounds like we don't yet, but any sense of that? But just to clarify, we're saving potentially $2,000 a year in terms of the yearly cost, but we have a roughly, and I understand it's very rough, but a roughly $130,000 startup. And presumably those dishwashers are not going to last forever, so they would need to be replaced at some point. Now, you wouldn't have to redo the installation as much, presumably, and all those things as much, but this is still going to be an investment that we're going to be asking the town to make, and it's not going to be recouped by the savings that we have on the yearly expenses.
Ms. Dow.
That's exactly, right. Well, that's exactly what I was trying to figure out the payback as well, but at what point you have to say to yourself, that's not the point, right? I know, but I agree, because I can't help myself but go run the numbers too, and it sounds like we came up to the same. I guess I was a little bit more hopeful that the ongoing cost of the program, you're right, because then we could get a payback eventually. So maybe once you do a bigger analysis, you will see that there's a little bit more of a delta there, and then
We hope.
we hope. But it's always better to, have our expectations low. And, but yeah, I think there's no doubt that we have to move on from styrofoam. And I love the idea of trying this at New Lab immediately, because then you could sort of work out the kinks and figure everything out, and timing, et cetera. So thank you so much for presenting this to us, Lori.
So, Ms. Dayton.
Hi, I'd like to get a better sense of the efficiencies that an outside consultant would examine within our system, because I'm all in favor of that concept, but I don't know what that looks like in practice. What does that consulting firm do in other districts that brings down the cost?
Jennifer, just a quick point of order. Is that about trays, or, because I'd like to just, okay, can we table that for a second, because I want to stick to the tray discussion. So I'd actually like to make a sense of the meeting resolution that it's the sense of the Board of Education that the superintendent should cease use of styrofoam trays no later than the start of summer school, and choose an alternative product while steel trays and a mechanical dishwasher are piloted at New Lebanon School and eventually purchased for all schools as soon as financially possible. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Raven, discussion? Mr. Chair?
I'm going to say this. Great, we can go do trays. I want to get rid of styrofoam right away. I don't like that resolution, because here's the thing, guys. We are wearing out our welcome with the BET. We are lurching from one interim to the next to the next. So if this is the best option to get rid of styrofoam, and I said this at the last meeting, okay, great. Somehow we've jumped to, this is the only one, this is the right one. I don't know why, like, tomorrow, we're not getting rid of these things, and in the meantime, using, they're more expensive, there are compostable options that we could be stopping using styrofoam tomorrow, and then we can go through the process. We're going to wait for the state to provide direction. God knows what legislation is going to come out. There's a built-in assumption that the assumption is going to be, get rid of styrofoam, and that the state, we've lived with this before, where all of a sudden the state winds up prescribing something that we didn't see coming. I would much rather wait to see which legislation we get at the end of June, because that's when the session's going to close. I would like to declare that we don't want to use styrofoam anymore. I would like the administration to use something starting tomorrow that they could get rid of. And if it ultimately leads to, okay, we need $200,000 for dishwashers, and that's the decision we're making, great. And go put that into the budget, and we'll do it in time for when we need it. You want to do a pilot of it? Great. Somehow we've turned the sense of the meeting into we're making the ultimate decision. It must be dishwashers, trays, starting by X date.
Yeah, let me read it again, and then I'd like to respond. So it is the sense of the Board of Education that the superintendent should cease use of styrofoam trays no later than the start of summer school, and choose an alternative product while steel trays and a mechanical dishwasher are piloted in New Lebanon and eventually purchased for all schools as soon as financially possible.
But I'm on the last part, which is, the last part of that statement says, we are deciding it's dishwashers and to be done as quickly as possible. Everything up to that point, I'm good. No, he says piloted, and then read the last statement. It says, and dishwashers to be done everywhere.
And eventually purchased for all schools as soon as financially possible. So first, it's a sense of the meeting resolution, Peter, right? At this point, we want to encourage the administration to cease the use of styrofoam. So I think we all agree, right? Okay, we want this pilot to go forward. We have the dishwasher there. They're going to buy the trays. So I think your issue is with the last part. So if you want to make a motion to strike the last part, a motion to amend.
I make a motion to amend and strike the last clause.
Is there a second? Second from Ms. Dayton. Discussion? Dr. Francis.
So two things I wanted to ask. First, slightly off, and I'm sorry, slightly blurring into the other, but if we were to do something with an outside source, would the metal tray still make sense? I'm trying to remember, like No Fuss Lunch, did they have their own system for packaging and presenting the food? And so would that potentially impact whether or not you'd want to have trays? So I just think we want to, let's not have two different things going on at the same time that are not paying attention to each other. So just, I think, to be careful about that. And the others, I would like to hear back about the feasibility, given that lots of other things have been considered and were not found to be so great, about changing it for this summer, and how feasible do we think that is? Obviously, I think we all would like to get rid of styrofoam trays as soon as possible, but I would like to get some feedback from those who have to carry this out in terms of the feasibility of that.
All right, so right now, let's limit our discussion to the motion to amend, which is to strike the language at the end about the purchase. So is there any more discussion on that? So all those in favor of the amendment, of striking the language at the end about eventually purchasing? All those against? All those abstaining? So you're against striking. Okay, so 6-1. So now the amended motion reads, since the Board of Education, that the superintendent should cease use of styrofoam trays no later than the start of summer school and choose an alternative product while steel trays and a mechanical dishwasher are piloted in New Lebanon. So further discussion, Ms. Dow.
Just to go again on the timing, I philosophically agree with it, but is summer school the right date? Does that get us through our supply or something like that? Is that kind of the concept?
It's great if we can do it.
In reference to the resolution, if I may, so summer school is going to be served at Glenville School. So we've done a pilot at Coscob using plastic kind of boats with the paper liner and other paper products in use with that. But we ran into a couple issues with that. The biggest one was being cited by the health department on not cleaning those properly. And I know Julie, as Champs, she had a lot of information in there about the paper pulp trays that are as an alternative, have a product in there called fluorine that is cancerous and stuff like that. So we'll need some time to figure out what the alternative will be to serve on at Glenville, not having a dishwasher there and trying to figure out what we're going to do with a disposable product or non-disposable.
Right, well, again, this is a sense of the meeting, right? We would like it to be done as soon as possible. Summer school is a good target, if not the beginning of the next school year. Mr. Sheriff?
I want to make a motion to amend that. Okay, I'm going to make another motion to amend that. I know. That's the way Barbara's okay, right? Don't worry, you can watch the tape later. I think we should amend that to instructing the superintendent to implement this change as soon as practical, or as soon as possible. I would like, I can say this up front, I'm saying I'd love it to happen yesterday. But we have to give the administration the opportunity to properly implement this thing. But I think this is the right thing to do to...
Is there a second for Mr. Scher's motion to amend? Okay, Dr. Francis. So you second it. So Peter, if I understand it, let me just reread this back to you to make sure I've got what you're saying. Sense of the meeting of the Board of Education that the superintendent should cease use of styrofoam trays as soon as possible, and then it's the and choose, yeah. And choose an alternate product in the pilot at New Levy. One is practical or possible? You said both, so pick one.
Practical.
All right, we'll go with practical. Do you still second that as okay, Dr. Francis?
The other thing I was going to ask is to have them come back and give us a follow-up on this at next meeting or something so we can get a sense of where things are going.
There's probably a willingness on Mr. Mayor. Yep. Okay. Okay. Ms. Dayton.
I'm not going to support that because nothing gets done unless you set a deadline. So I think I would like to say by the start of the next school year. I don't want it to be as soon as practical because I don't know when that stretches out in time.
Ms. Olson.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to say practical or possible or all of that's open to interpretation. So I'm back to the deadline because I think styrofoam trays, we have to figure it out. We have to figure it out.
We're back. I'm withdrawing the motion, so we're back where we started.
Yes, so we'd be back at summer school. Mr. Schiff's withdrawing his motion.
July 1, you said?
I believe July 1 is summer school. No, it's earlier than that. Do you know what the
deadline?
Well, the start of summer school is a defined date. That's fine. All right, so the motion is on the table. Is there more discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, all those would you like me to reread it one more time? Yes, okay, here we go. So a sense of the Board of Education that the superintendent should cease use of styrofoam trays no later than the start of summer school and choose an alternate product while steel trays and a mechanical dishwasher are piloted at New Lebanon School. All those in, Yes, it's a sense of, because we're not giving direction at this point. It's a sense of. It's not an action item. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, that passes 6-1. Thank you. All right, any other discussion on the Food Services Committee update? Would you like to, hey, I drive an electric car, you want to talk more?
On behalf of Gaetan, because since I know she composts, I don't want her to go down as the person who voted against this. I just have to put that out there.
So yes, Dr. Francis has a preference for compostable materials. Look, we appreciate all the work that's gone into this so far, the community effort, certainly the students coming tonight. Try to get them gone as fast as we can. We do that. That's what the sense of the board is. So please do that. Ms. Raven.
I just want to add one comment about like the cost and if you think we're losing favor with the BET. We do have a BET member that sits on the Food Services Committee. And if you think about what this means in terms of, the health and the environment and the outlay, the initial outlay cost in comparison to what we did for school start times, I just want to keep that in perspective.
I'll just add to that. Mr. Shuri made reference to an interim appropriation. At this point, we aren't rushing forward with an interim appropriation. What I want to hear is how is it working at New Lab? What are some of the costs that are still to be worked out? Is there savings on refuse and all the rest of it? So it may be that we build this into our next budget cycle, and we may have enough information at that point to do it in a real way. They did not ask for an interim yet, so it's not here as an action item. But we do need to figure out if this works or not first. Ms. Dayton.
Me to defer my original discussion point, so I'd like to take that up now. In order to find money to improve in the way we just discussed, I'd like to know through an outside consultant if efficiencies can be found. Are they going to be significant? And have you spoken to that consultant about whether in other districts they've been able to generate that kind of savings that could help us a long way down the road to covering the new expense?
We have not spoken with the consultant, that consultant arrangement. We're still waiting for proposals to come our way, and then we're hoping to it'll be turned over to us, and we'll continue on with our work internally.
All right, anything else on food services? Mr. Sherry?
Yeah, I don't really understand that answer, Lori. And maybe I'm missing the goal here. I'm a little confused too, because I thought you were leading this committee, but I'm lost here. I'm lost here on who to address this to. When we last had the Food Services Committee before us, there was a set of like 5 or 6 tasks and questions that were directed back to the committee, and the committee was going to come back, right? One of them I didn't really understand. This idea of us and the fund balance with food, I think we have kind of lost that thread. And here's the thread that I thought. I don't know that it should be the goal of food services to cover every cost, because the reality of it is that to me seems almost like an unreasonable ask. And the reason I say it's an unreasonable ask is under law, the town of Greenwich is to provide the funding for, even if we shut down food services tomorrow, that any kid not on free and reduced lunch could not get lunch, there would be a cost to the town of Greenwich. That's an embedded cost. So my point is that number's always got to be there. And I'm a little puzzled by the point of we're now trying to cover not only our costs that are for kids who are not on the free and reduced lunch, it sounds like we're trying to also cover all of those costs too. And it's leading us to a place that it's creating conflicting goals. I almost feel like we're asking you guys to, be Olympic style jumpers. And I'm wondering if we're giving an expectation that is not a reasonable ask of the food services folks. So how's that fitting? Because I heard Lori say we're down to a point now where we're covering it all, or less than 100.
No, I don't think that's not what she said. So remember we came with a pilot for potentially Glenville School No Fuss Lunch. We were asked to come up with other options. Mm-hmm. So there's a company, Brigade, and that's the consultant. So No Fuss Lunch is not a consultant. They sell food to children. And parents buy that food. The consultant is Brigade, and they come in and help with, maybe preparing food in a different way. So, like the cost of doing it from scratch. You know what it's like. You go into Whole Foods, and if you buy the thing that's already chopped, that costs more than buying it and chopping it yourself. So something along those lines. But there's a cost to that consultancy. So the efficiencies is if we can do things more efficient, maybe we can buy food that costs more, or maybe the labor might be different. We don't know. We just have a proposal based on what they've been able to do at other schools. And then our thought was to go with a traditional institutional food services management company, and that's where we're trying to get, because we wanted to provide all options. Here's the different ways that we could go about this, all in the context of learning from these options to do things better in-house internally, with a menu that we believe is nutritious and that kids would eat and looks good. And then there's the whole, we've heard a little bit about it tonight, the concept of a la carte, because we're looking at the whole financial model. So are we feeding all the free and reduced lunch kids? How much money are we making off of a la carte? Some a la carte is not healthy, some a la carte is healthy. So just understanding like all of that, and it's going to take time, and that's why we want to pilot.
But I'm sorry, Lauren, I didn't ask the question properly. Is the goal, is the remit to figure out how to do that at, obviously at break even from a P&L perspective, but what I'm wondering is there that break even point that you're trying to get to, or we're going to help this consultant try to get to? Is it also saying, oh, and by the way, while you're at it, figure out how to zero out the town's contribution, or is that including an assumption we would continue to get the town's contribution to the food services program?
I don't know that we specifically said it, and you guys keep me correct. the goal is to feed our kids more nutritious lunch, and it might
Yes.
wind up costing us more money, and maybe we're still gonna need the town subsidy, and I think that's for us as the Board of Ed to decide, is this important enough for us that we want to make sure that our kids are eating the best food possible, and it's maybe might cost us more money. And we're just not at a place to know what that is or isn't yet. As a district, because once we learn what happens with like a brigade or a no-fuss lunch, and when we come back to you and we give you all the facts and figures and here's the options, you guys might all say, you know what, we just are gonna do the no-fuss lunch, or you know what, we're just gonna do brigade, or you know what, we don't wanna do anything, we're gonna try to do this ourselves, and go from there.
I think you should just include it, you should declare it as an assumption, because it's gonna be the easier thing to hit, of a P&L that gets to zero, but includes a continued contribution from the town of Greenwich, particularly as it relates to those free and reduced lunch. I think the other one is too hard, and it may not hit our goals, so that was why I'm asking the question. I think you should think the town has to contribute to this program and continue to do so.
So Lauren, I'm with you, and I think we know enough yet to say that. I don't want to go in with a goal that this is about money, because if we go in with that as the goal, the result is not going to be what we want it to be. That of course can be a consideration, but it is not the only consideration, nor should it be the primary consideration. That's my opinion. Anybody else? All right, well, we'll be hearing more, I'm sure, about food services and trays, and thank you very much. All right, the next item is the Cardinal Stadium bleacher update. Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Peter. Just to give you a little, sorry about that. Before I even get to the bleachers at Cardinal Field, one of the things that I want to make clear is that we have a plan for graduation. That plan has not been approved by various town officials, so we're not going to get into it yet. As soon as we are approved, we'll come back and we'll make it public for everyone, but we're not going to talk about that until we have a stamp of approval by various town agencies. But we do have a plan, and it will be, hopefully, it'll be approved, and we'll be able to go forward, and the kids, the parents, and especially all of us up here, we want graduation to be held on field at one time with everyone there, and that's our goal. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Mr. Piotrowski has been working, I don't know where he finds the time myself, to get this going, and he deserves all the credit for this, along with Mr. Watson over there. Okay, so bleachers. Just to give you a little timeline on the bleachers, we received a complaint back in late March, early April, that a parent from another town visiting team, that he was going to go through the bleachers, or something went through the bleachers, and he was actually talking about the visiting side bleachers. So we had the bleachers on that side inspected, and they were repaired. There was not an issue with those. We then heard a number of public officials tell us that the bleachers were unsafe, so that's when we, along with the building department and the risk manager from the town of Greenwich, all took a hard look at the home side bleachers. Our consultant, our structural engineer, the head of the building department, and the risk manager all deemed that the bleachers were unsafe and they needed to be shut down. And that's what we did. We were not going to put anybody's health or safety at risk in using those bleachers. So that's an unfortunate turn of events. I seem to have a facilities problem a month as superintendent, but at least this didn't involve water yet. We have time. So we have been looking at various options, not just for graduation, but we have a whole sports season going on right now and ahead of us before our scheduled project, if passed by the RTM in May, begins, which we begin the tear down of those bleachers in December, early December. Anyway, I wanted to present as many options for us for tonight as possible. We have a couple of options in terms of repairing the home bleachers. I don't recommend either one, but we received these options from our consultant, and I'm going to hand them out to you and we'll post them on board docs tomorrow. Dan, you think you want to walk them through, no? Okay, option 1 and 2.
So first, these are order of magnitude prices. I don't even want to call them prices. These are guesstimates, estimates by an engineer, a qualified engineer. There are no drawings prepared just yet. We did not ask the engineer to prepare drawings yet to go out for bid. We wanted to find out what exactly we're going to do, if we're going to repair them, if we're not, when are we going to do it. So these are a pretty good indication of what kind of pricing we're looking at. And it's a lot more than I think a lot of people are willing to appreciate. And that's just my own opinion, especially when we are moving forward with a brand new stadium. Again, my own opinion. For those folks who don't realize the extent of the, I don't want to call it damage, but the degradation of the stadium, I don't know if you can see that. That's a column, and those are my fingers going through the column. There's 11 of those. All right, so there's no doubt in my mind that the Board of Ed, along with the town and the risk manager, made the right decision. So with that being said, we asked the engineer to come up with a couple of prices, a couple of scenarios, best guesses of what it would take to put the structure in a temporary safe mode that would meet current codes. And when I say codes, what we found out was these bleachers were originally not built to code. At the time, there really wasn't a code that existed. So we're at a situation right now where not only do we have to repair a 50-year-old structure, but we have to repair it to meet current codes. So there's an extensive amount of steel work that needs to be done, and this is their best guesstimate at what needs to be done, along with some Board of Ed costs, including manpower to move the equipment out from underneath it, possible storage areas, electrical modifications, things of that nature. So it's pretty extensive. It's doable at a cost, and if everything goes right, we could have it structurally sound by the start of the fall season, if the stars align, everything gets approved. So.
And just to give a sense, because I know not everybody's got the paper, and they will be posted tomorrow. So the high is about 300,000, the low is about 2.25, 225,000. And Dan, if I understand you correctly, this work couldn't be completed and be ready until the fall. So even if we were ready to move forward today and found the money and got the town approval and all the rest of it, work wouldn't happen in time for graduation. I just want to make everybody understand that.
No way.
Okay. So then the decision would be about whether we could get this in place for fall sports.
Correct.
Thank you. Ms. Dayton.
I absolutely am not in favor of anything remotely like this. We need new bleachers. We need to start work immediately and have it done by the fall season, if possible, with portable toilets. We have to move forward immediately with those 2 items. Everything else can take its time over the next academic year.
Mr. Scher.
I'm in exactly the same place. I'm not interested, building some of the designs that we saw, I don't even know which one is the one we're actually talking about anymore, but we saw a variety of different designs for bleachers. All of that was contingent upon the idea that we had bleachers and we would have the luxury of planning time and all the rest of it. I think we need to face facts. That's gone out the window. And I think as a board, our priorities now need to change. Our priorities need to change to, we need to get onto a plan to get bleachers in place without all these extra bells and whistles in place as quickly as possible. And our target should be, I think our new target should be, having them in place as early in this fall sports season as possible. I realize there are others who would like a grander scheme for our, ultimately for our school, but I'm not willing to go all the way through next year easily, maybe even with our rate at projects spilling over into the next year, because we want a solution. I think we need to readjust our expectation and readjust our thinking. It would be a real crime to take student athletes who where we have a huge student athletic program, and to say to them, oh, by the way, for maybe a year or even 2, you're not going to have this. So if someone can propose something that says, okay, fine, there's an interim solution that can be put in place, like in the space between the current bleachers and track, or taking over the track for part of the time, or doing something else while you go do the planning of this grand project for the stadium, which could take as long as, I mean, optimistically with what we've got going on there, I think that planning process is going to take, an approval process with MI and all the rest of it's going to take a lot longer than any of us think, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. Think about how long it took us to get approvals for a new Lebanon school, just to keep that in perspective. If someone can come up with something in between, I don't want to invest in this. I'd rather look for, if there's a temporary solution that gives us a program and something to support the fall program on the way to building these grandstands we're looking for, great. If not, I think we need to look at more practical and pragmatic options that can be implemented in a much faster time. I'm very concerned about the impact of the fall program and the spring program.
Ms. Dayton.
I'll be brief, but I just want to make sure that when you agree with me, you're really agreeing with me. And what I'm saying is that I want new bleachers and portable toilets by the fall season, but I want us to continue developing a site plan. So 2 parallel tracks.
So just to give you perspective, because I've spent an awful lot of time on this, Peter, it's not a grand scheme. We're not building a major NFL stadium. There's a timeline for building bleachers. You basically need to design them. They need to be fabricated. They need to be delivered and installed. In that meantime, you need to remove your old bleachers. None of this happens as quickly as you'd like. We've requested money. The BET has approved money. It's going to the RTM on May 13th for the replacement of the bleachers. The earliest that work could begin to do that process from design to fabrication and the rest would be July 1 based on the town's fiscal rules. So even if you wanted to scale them down to the tiniest of little bleachers, you'd have that problem. But I do like the idea of something interim, and I know a lot of the effort right now has been about graduation because that is the most important event of the year for a lot of these students. It is happening soon, so that's where the effort has been. I'm sure people are already starting to think about what could we do for the fall sports season that hasn't been left behind. Our committee hasn't met since the bleachers were closed. We certainly can take that up in that committee and come back. I think Rick, Dan, Ralph are doing it. That's not a committee decision so much as it is the administration coming to us with a proposal. There's probably a cost associated with it. I'm hoping it's a heck of a lot less than $225,000, but that it's something that bridges the gap. I don't think we need a complete set of bleachers for 1,500 people, even at the best homecoming games. And last year was great. Maybe we just have to scale down and more people put chairs on the hill this year. But I'd like to see something. But I also know, Peter, the bleachers that are there now have been working for us for about 50 years. So I don't want to go and skimp and build something that's not going to be future forward looking.
So let me ask a clarifying question, since you were addressing me, Peter. So let me ask a clarifying question. I think at the last meeting when this came forward and all of a sudden we were submitting this, there wasn't a lot of detail of exactly what the spec was for these bleachers. I think, if I'm not wrong, there was a direction given to go get some drawings out of our architect. I don't recall ever seeing those.
I'm done, Peter.
Okay, so my question is to you, representing us on the committee, what is the bleacher specification include that you're considering that was the basis for the funding request from the BET? Did it include, as an example, bathrooms? Did it include team rooms? Did it include an elevator? What did it include?
We actually voted on that as a board. I don't remember the design number, but what we did vote on was bleachers, team rooms, bathrooms, storage.
So it's a structure beyond, my point is it's a structure beyond just bleachers.
Right, but what we did at the last meeting, we moved forward a request for an appropriation of BET for bleachers and temporary bathrooms, so to Jennifer's point. And that is the initial work. The rest of it is phased, right? So the appropriation that the BET, we moved forward to the BET voted on and moved forward to the RTM is for that first phase of the work. Well, it comes up to, it's like 1.8 and change.
So the request that they've approved is for presumably aluminum bleachers, and because that number, it's kind of bleachers we have now and temporary bathrooms.
Right, and the bleachers, obviously, bleachers, press box, ADA accessibility, all the design installation.
And the idea is what? That these other things like an elevator and the other stuff will be installed later?
No, the elevator for the press box is part of that because that's part of the ADA accessibility. That's part of that request for the funds. The funding is coming before the RTM.
Yeah, of course.
The bleachers, Peter, are delayed by the fact that there's a press box and an elevator. None of that is delayed. We have to get the money from the RTM before work can carry forward on the bleachers.
Yeah, it was on the point of $1.7 million.
The amount is 3.9.
Okay. Lori, maybe you can.
Okay, so what?
Sorry, what was the specific budget question? The total budget approved was 3.9.
Right, and then the other stuff is in further phases.
Right. This money is specifically for the bleachers, and the continuation of site design, and then temporary bathrooms. The bleachers include the press box, yeah.
That's part of the bleachers. Okay, thank you, Molly. This is not an interactive meeting. All right, other discussion from the board? Dr. Francis.
So just to completely sink myself as being an unpopular person tonight, I will add one other thing, which is I would really like to see graduation all in one place with everybody, but I have a hard time supporting that without any information as to what it's going to be. And so just to slightly modify the statement that you made about that, if you told me it was going to be $1 million to do that, I would have to think about the fact that if it rains, we'd have to put everybody inside anyway. So I still think we need to be reasonable in what we're doing with that.
My motto is not to throw good money after bad.
All right, any other discussion on bleachers? I presume, again, we will take this up as there's more information. Mr. Mayor.
We will get you some more information about the rental of bleachers, and we'll have that posted on board docs as well. We didn't have that. We didn't have enough time to get that information to you as well. But we were considering rental of bleachers for 1,800 people.
Can I just clarify, Ralph? You said earlier the current plan, which I presume is attached to this 3.9 million, which had a bunch of conditions to it. It has a whole bunch of conditions to it. I mean, we're kind of glossing over that part. That's 3.9, and the current plan was to begin, you said demolition in December, did you say?
Demolition after the fall sports season ended, so.
And then when was that to be completed?
The bleachers would be up by, I believe it was April, I think.
April, so it's a 5-month implementation from demolition to, right, of course, right? So, but demolition starts. So if you slide that schedule forward, right, even if we could start today, you guys can't, maybe this is a question for Dan, you can't envision any scenario where we would have this thing by the beginning of the fall sports season.
Well, first of all, Peter, we don't have the money, but let's back away.
Let's assume we could get the money and get it approved, right?
We have a treasure trove someplace, or somebody on the board wins a lotto and wants to donate. But here's the thing, this is bleacher season. People are building bleachers all over the country, so
the capacity is already taken.
There. Yeah.
Okay, helpful, thanks.
All right, anything else? So moving on from bleachers, then, thank you. Policy first read, Dr. Francis.
Okay, I did not get any feedback, but just to review, we had pointed out sort of 4 policies on the first reads. 3150, there's a slight change that we made in the wording in terms of budget adoption. Well, actually, I'm sorry, not so much wording change, but it wasn't completely clear to us, and we sort of checked into it. None of us remember doing it, but we basically put in there that if the RTM or BET changes our budget, then we have to vote on it again for our operating budget to approve what changes are in our budget. That was sort of the only thing in there that I thought was an issue.
Jennifer.
Thank you for that introductory comment. Are we taking them one at a time, or can I move to a different number?
All right, Mr. Shears. Oh, good. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead, because I've got a couple as well. So.
Is it okay to take up 3152?
Go ahead.
Okay. I strongly urge PGC to not take the CABE policy as presented, because it's very confusing to our taxpayers and our parent body when we're talking about passing budgets through referenda, which happens in many Connecticut towns, but it's just not relevant to Greenwich, and I think it will generate a lot of confusion. So 2 through 8 really needs to come out, in my view, and if you want to substitute other wording, please go right ahead.
All right, so I've got one on 3160. Gaetan, this is the, you have one on that one? Okay. Mr. Chair, on 3152.
I was in the same place, Gaetan, on referendum, but I don't, that I wouldn't strike that. I think the critical point is that the school system, this is a helpful policy because we never had this before. School systems should be strictly prescribed on using public resources for advocacy for anything that is going to be before the town, and whatever that body may be, having to take a vote or make a vote.
I didn't understand that. Can you say it again?
This policy very clearly is saying don't use public resources to take a position on a particular decision that has to go before, and this it's assuming, but directly to the public. Okay. I think the important part of this is the school system shouldn't be using its resources to advocate one way or the other to, particularly this is saying, I mean, obviously board members can go out and advocate, the administration can go out and advocate, but this is using resources to call on the public or parents to do it. So keying off what Jennifer's saying, I think the referenda isn't, but I would hate to see you lose 2 through 8.
If there's nothing else on that one, on 3150, I'm sorry, wrong page, 3160, transfer of funds. So I disagree with the language about the superintendent or designee being able to transfer funds greater than $10,000 without coming to the board first. This is one of our statutory responsibilities, is minding our budget. I think we want to continue with our practice, which is they should be coming to the board. We're looking for pre-approval, not just general movement. And the other is about notice to the BET. So there's been dialogue back and forth with the BET about when do we need to go to them and are we really seeking approval? The practice in Greenwich has been approval when the statute doesn't really call for that. So we're trying to figure out what that nexus is, and maybe we need to have a better reporting requirements. It might be worth putting into the policy that we will alert the BET as to all transfers. In here, I think the way that I read this is it's emergency transfers, we let them know. Ms. Doe?
We might turn to you on this one, because wasn't this your suggested change that it aligns with what we are?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was trying to find the document, so if you could just tell me the number again, please.
3160.
Okay.
Because I have in my notes, I think this is the one where it was transfers, and I thought that this is how we were actually aligning to what we are doing.
Correct.
What the BET.
Right, so right now, the BET approves transfers between major object codes and if they exceed $10,000. And for us here, the Board of Ed approves all transactions over $10,000, but it could be within a major object code or leaving the major object code. So what I've suggested here is that that we align with what is presented to the BET, so that the Board of Ed would be approving transactions that are greater than $10,000 and they have to be going between to a different major object code. However, I think it's important that you're seeing all the transfers. I think there was a concern that if there's movements between programs, you might not have a chance to see that. So the report will still include the information, we'll just section it. So the top half, for example, would require your approval and the bottom half would be informational.
So I guess just to reply to that, because we've been seeing this in practice a lot lately, we're moving from various parts of the budget into special ed to cover out-of-district placement. In the way this is reading, if it's under $10,000, it's not coming to us for approval, it's just happening.
Right, that's the case today. If it's under $10,000.
Yeah, so I think I want to fix that case, because I have issue when some of this is about whether we've found money, right, that is unspent for certain reasons. I worry about the transfers, right? I worry about where the money is coming from and where it's going to. So I think this is an opportunity, and I'm happy to sit and talk to you or PGC, but I think we really need to clean this up to better reflect what we should be doing. I know what our existing practice is, and I'm not sure it's exactly what it ought to be. So, and I think we also should maybe involve the BET liaisons, because we've been talking to them for a while about where we report it. So I think it's worth having that conversation. Mr. Chair.
But we shouldn't solve this through policy. I mean, policy's policy, right? The real problem is, and this is the wrong way to do it, is the problem you're talking about is ineffective budgeting. So the fact that there's ineffective budgeting going on year after year, that's an operational problem. You don't fix that through a policy. You know, and we need to tell the current superintendent's already heard it, the next superintendent needs to fix that problem, because we should not keep getting these transfers like this. And it's not a policy problem, it's an actual it's an actual properly administering our budgets problem. And so I wouldn't try to fix that problem here. It's just, if the threshold is $10,000 because that's when the board should be involved after it passed its budget, because they moved it around, the purpose of the transfer is really not approval. We approve every single one of them. The purpose of the transfer is to get a notification. That's the reason this thing exists, is so that we're notified when they materially change our budget. And so I would leave it the way it is. If the BET wants to know that we've materially changed our budget, fine, go work on that. But in the meantime, in addition to that, we have to get much better at properly budgeting in the first place and administering our budgets properly.
So I don't, Peter, I agree with you. We definitely have some work to do, but this would codify the practice that we would expect to see when money is moving within our budget, right? We should be asking for that, but we should do that by policy, so that it is a matter of policy as opposed to this has been our practice. So
just so I understand it, Peter, you would want to see things in a transfer even if they're less than $10,000?
now, I don't know that we need to vote on every transfer under $10,000, but I think anything that's crossing a program line, right? If something's already in the curriculum area and they're moving it from one to the next, but there's a concept in financial crimes called layering, and basically cash transactions under $10,000 that need to be reported. So you just make a lot of $9,000 transactions, right? And so I'm sure we're not doing that. It's a silly budget trick. But when things are crossing program lines, that's when we venture into the area Peter's talking about is, are we properly budgeting in the first place? And we do these budgets so far in advance, it's hard to know to the penny. I completely understand that. It's an awful way to budget, but that's what we do. But I think that we have a responsibility to the taxpayers, and we have a statutory responsibility to make decisions about how money is transferred between accounts. So if you go to the statute, it says the Board of Education may transfer money after the town gives us money based on a detailed budget. It's up to us to move that money around.
Maybe, I don't know, we could talk about this back at policy and see what's best. I just don't want to get to the point where on a $160 million budget, we're looking at, $5,000 here. But maybe if you sort of set up a threshold where there's a catch-up once you come above a certain amount in a particular code. Anyway, we could talk about this offline, but I don't want to get...
Right, but one thing I want you to take account of those for bigger things, pre-approval, is $10,000, right? Not a small threshold, not a big threshold. If you go back and you look at the budget transfers, anything over that, I think we should be looking at. Because if you're waiting until something's happened, it's already happened. And, if it's happened a bunch of times, it adds up. So, anyway, those are my comments on that one. Anyone else on any other policies? All right, Ms. Dayton.
So I'm interested in 3290, unless someone has something before that. Second sentence has a typo, shame on CABE, not on PGC. 3290, page 14, says all employees with follow. It means all employees will follow. So if you could change that typo in 3290, that would be great.
Peter?
Keaton, I'm back on 3280. What was the purpose of this current procedure? Is that just information? Is that going to be in the policy? What are we doing here?
So a lot of I actually intentionally left the procedure on because that was such a big deal that we worked on it about a year or so ago. And a lot of these old procedures are coming over as regulations, and the expectation is that this one would. So I just figured, since it had been such a hot topic last year, that I would keep it attached.
So we're not voting on it, it's just information?
Right.
But you're planning to bring this over wholesale?
Yeah, I mean, the discussion in PGC, with Ralph there was, this would be expected to come over, and that's why we refer to it within the policy.
Please don't open this Pandora's box again.
I'm just trying to keep it the same and make that clear.
So while we're on the gifts, I guess the question is, are we looking at this from the burden on the people trying to give us money? I just want to make sure it's not too burdensome a process, right? When somebody wants to, all right, fine. Can we go back to 3231, which is the medical reimbursement? So it doesn't actually say in our policy where the money goes. I know we've been trying to hammer that issue out with the BET. I think we should be clear in our policy that the money comes back to us because that's what the law says. Mary smiling. Got the statutory set, we may as well get the statutory language. Anybody else on anything? All right, on 3240, I know you're still writing, it's the next one, tuition fees. A question was raised, I think, I don't remember who raised it, about are we collecting taxes from our employees on the savings that they get on tuition? And so I think we had referred this over to Bob at some point. I don't know the answer to it, but we might want to know, and if that needs to be put into our policy.
Wade Fox is investigating this for us.
It's a legal implication too, though.
Yeah, so Wayne Fox was supposed to get back to us on that. I haven't heard from him yet.
Dr. Francis?
So, as I sometimes say to Kathleen, if we'd like to discuss anatomy, I'd be happy to do that. You know, it's sort of what I feel about this. But my sense would be that, you know, that could be the kind of thing that potentially would be in regulations or someplace else. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it just seems fine minutia to me, but I don't know if we need to have that necessarily in the policy. But yes, if it's an issue, it should be clarified, but I don't know.
Right, well, we're trying to get clarification on it, so I don't know where it lives, and I wanted to raise it to you. Mr. Chair.
We don't, but we need a policy that says, we need a policy from the board that lists and says the administration will administer our financials complying with GAAP, GASB, IRS regulations, state of Connecticut regulations, and what have you. We should not start to go to this level in policies. We just need to be sure we're complying. Our financials are in fact complying with all. The question that's come up now is, have we not been properly accounting for the value of tuition as imputed income? Okay, and that's why I don't understand. It's not a legal question. It's an IRS question. It's an accounting question. So, but in terms of policy, we don't need to write something. We just need to have a policy statement. And I don't know. It's not here. There should have been a universal policy statement under financials that it would comply with all relevant accounting standards, and yeah, it's under GASB. It's under the Government Accounting Standards Board.
What you're saying is if we have it in a general policy,
it shouldn't be in there.
It doesn't necessarily need to be in here.
There should be a universal financial policy.
I have one more, and I promise I'll stop after that. On this one, anyway. 3323, it's the soliciting prices and bidding requirements. I think the only thing that's missing from it is an exception for purchasing off state lists. And also, I'm not sure that it's really clear about emergency situations, because there are times when time is of the essence and you really can't be bidding. So I just want to make sure that those are carved out as exceptions. And Lori probably knows more about buying off state lists than I ever will, so I'm no expert. I just know that we've been doing it for New Lab when bids have come in high. So. Anybody else on any of these? All right, Dr. Francis, you have enough input? All right, so that's the policy first read. So we're going to move on to our action items. And the first one is policies. Dr. Francis.
Can I make a motion? I'd like, instead of taking these four together, could we take them?
Gaetan,
Can we take them individually?
Yeah, why don't you just, I guess, are you amenable to, because you'll be making the motions, I presume. All right, there you go.
Okay, all right. Oh.
It says approve policies as presented.
I move that we approve the policies listed for second read, with the exception of the four policies. Was it four? Yes. Four policies that have been edited. Is that the right word? Edited.
All right, a second from Ms. Dayton. Discussion.
items we're going to go in after all four we do. We're just approving all the items that are listed on the front. Looks like, I don't know. The 15 listed. So, yeah, so we're looking at
Our secretary had to step out for a moment, so I'm doing two jobs.
So we're in the policy discussion. This is the most numbers there.
Here she comes. Okay, good.
Action items?
I wrote the motion. All right, so there's a motion. The motion was made by Dr. Francis, was seconded by Ms. Dayton. And the motion on the table is to accept all of the policies, but for the four that were revised that are listed on the cover sheet. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, 7-0. Thank you.
Are you a doctor?
I should have been a doctor. I know. All right, so Dr. Francis.
I move to,
Yeah.
is there one in particular that people want to take out?
Do you want to remove them one at a time then?
Okay. I move to approve policy 1316.
Second from Ms. Doe. Discussion, Mr. Scher?
Gaetan, how do you guys plan to deal with this if, how do you plan to deal with this if marijuana becomes legal? Where does this policy deal with that? Because I noticed you changed it for smoking use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes and vaping. That was great. Do we just need to revisit this if the state winds up making marijuana legal?
Yeah, if it makes it legal for people under 21.
Right. Because this policy also in the end wound up, it makes this reference to staff and community, which it would be legal for them. At the back, I just was wondering, I'm trying to not have to deal with this twice. In the event it happens.
Peter, just to make sure I understand the point, because the way this reads is based upon the above, expects that no person on school property, this includes smoking, we would have to add marijuana if that's, because right now it's illegal, nobody can do it, but if we want to ban it on school property, we would then have to amend this policy.
That was my question,
Yeah, so
which is, were you going to try to do this now because it said use of tobacco products, or fine, if we're going to deal with it when it comes up, we can deal with it when it comes up.
I mean, these policies are living and breathing, and we can.
I'm just trying not to have us have to do this twice, but whatever. Okay, fine, never mind. Keep going.
Ms. Olson.
Yeah, I just want to thank Dr. Francis and the Policy Governance Committee, because it's so clearly delineated. Like, I know for a long time I was like searching, and the fact that they're redlined and I can see what the policy was, the adaptations, like I just really appreciated jumping off the page like this. So thank you so much.
So with that, the motion on the table is to accept the policy 1316 as it was revised. All those in favor? All right, 7-0. Thank you. Dr. Francis?
I move to approve policy 1112.6/1321.2.
Second? Ms. Doe. Do you want to speak, Ms. Doe? No? Mr. Scher?
Can I talk about recordings of meetings? Gaetan, maybe you can answer this. We talk about this within the context of a PPT or a 504 section, but is this precluding, this seems like it's precluding audio taping by parents meeting with administrators outside of those two cases. Is that how this policy is written?
That is what it says.
So this would block, you're saying this would block a parent from recording a parent-teacher conference over an issue that they're having with a particular child. This would say this is not allowed. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And we can change it if we want to change it.
No, I was just trying to get the clarification. I don't know if anybody else wants to change it. That bothers me. That bothers me that we're not allowing a parent, because, you know, I don't walk into parent-teacher conferences with a recorder, but I think that's really taking away something from parents if they feel like they're in a situation where they need to do that. I get the one on the PPT, I get the one on the 504. My kid has a 504, so I know what those meetings go like. Never felt compelled to record anything. But it bothers me that we're essentially saying that it's now banned.
So it does say actually that exceptions can be made as requested,
But it has to be, the
it has to be-
the administration
they have to
has to
okay it.
approve it, and that's removing parent rights. I got a problem with that.
Well, can I jump in for a second? Because I'm not sure this is about parent rights. We actually, while these policies are on our website, it's next to impossible to enforce it in this way as a parent. I think it's more aimed towards school personnel, quite honestly. Connecticut is a one-party consent state for recording, but I think this was more aimed towards our personnel recording meetings with parents than the other way around. But I don't know, maybe we can get some clarification from Cabe on it if you'd like, because I'm not sure.
I
As
wouldn't want
read
to
it,
take
that's
that
how I
right
read
away
it.
from a teacher either. I would rather have it so that if someone felt like to protect their interests, they needed to do this. If a teacher thinks they're dealing with an aggressive parent and they think they need to do it, great. If a parent thinks they're not being treated properly by the administrator and they think they need to do it, great. I don't condone the practice, don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't want to have a one-sided exclusion is the point I'm just trying to make. If someone feels like they really need to do it, you know, and to your point, we don't require consent under Connecticut law. So, you know, that we're adding a special restriction, and I'm just sensitive to removing somebody's rights, I guess is my point. That's what bothers me about it. By the way, thank you very much for struggling through this. I'm sure it wasn't an easy discussion anyway.
Ms. Dayton.
The first paragraph, the last line, I thought this was focused on if the activity creates a disruption to the education process. And so I was comfortable with it, because I thought that was the thrust of the argument for having the policy.
But it talks about recordings of meetings is the part I'm talking about, I'm sorry, Jennifer, just so I can be clear, I wasn't clear. I'm talking about the last paragraph. And
Okay.
the exclusion that's in the last paragraph. I wasn't talking about recording
Oh,
students. The rest
okay.
of that I'm fine with. I don't think we should be recording students without parent consent. I don't think we should be recording teachers without their consent, you know, so on and so forth. And I realize there's exclusions for plays and stuff like that. That's all great. My concern was the last paragraph about meetings, which primarily are between parents and administrators and administrators and administrators.
You know, and I'm not even clear. Connecticut is actually a two-party consent state. So I just verified that. I would double check that. So I don't know. I'm all for putting this aside until we get clarity. It's on the table.
I'm happy to
so.
do that, but I guess the question is, if it turns out it's a two-party consent, then that
We need the language because they're prohibited from doing
doing
it
it
by law.
anyway,
as a
although
matter of
you may
law.
want to put it in here since it might not be clear, but just to say that.
Yeah.
But if it's a one-party consent, do we have a sense of how we want to approach it? Or do we want to have another conversation
I
about
think
it?
we might want to have another conversation. So do you want to withdraw the motion on this one?
I withdraw the motion.
Thank you very much. Important to do it. All right. Keaton, do you want to make a?
I move to approve a policy 1324.
Your second? Ms. Stowe? Discussion?
I just have one question. This subject is soliciting funds from students. So I got a little confused by this last line because it says district partners, including PTA boosters and GA, you know, whatever, do not require Board of Education, but must follow applicable regulations and completion forms. But they're given the right to solicit to who? Is this soliciting, this is from and by students? Do we actually want PTAs directly soliciting students? So I got the part of PTA soliciting parents. I didn't understand can you just help clarify that, why that red part's there?
I thought we had put it as a separate paragraph, and maybe it should have its own little title, and it shouldn't be specifically under the students and to and from students.
Yeah, because the line before
a
is
little
there shall
bit
be no direct solicitation of funds by outside organizations from students. right? And then the next line seems to be like an exclusion for them that says, except these organizations can go to students. I didn't think you did, is that what you meant?
I think we meant it sort of as a more general issue, that we're not restricting them. But I mean, you know, students are buying the cookies at the bake sale. I mean, that's sort of soliciting funds from them. Or book sales or other things. So I mean, it is to some extent sometimes from students. It's sort of more generally, it might be parents, it might be other people as well. So I had sort of thought of this as a separate sentence just to clarify, because there had been the question of, you know, do they have to go through all the same hoops and go to the superintendent of schools?
You wouldn't want that, but.
So I was sort of thinking of it as a more slightly separate, and so the question is maybe what we could do is put a different title over it to clarify that it's sort of more of a general issue, not necessarily specifically about students.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this one?
Do people want us to change that a little, or does it seem clear?
So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting policy 1324, all those opposed, all those abstaining. So it passes 601.
I move to approve policy 4134.
Ms. Stowe, were you the second? Oh, yeah. Thank you. All right, discussion? Mr. Sherrick.
Okay, Tom, what was the feedback that you got on the clause taught the prior year from parents and teachers?
The only feedback we got was the feedback everybody heard here, but this came specifically out of the MOU that then got incorporated into the contract. So this is just making the policy parallel that. And I'm sorry, this one didn't come out red.
To the current GA contract. And the GA didn't have concerns about that. No. I'm asking a different question.
I thought that that's actually what we heard at our last meeting, that we should be consistent with the contract.
No, I was on a different part. I understand what happens in the negotiation of a contract, right? And that wasn't my question. My real question was, I could see how this takes. I'm thinking of. I'll give you a good example. At the high school in advanced mathematics, in the most advanced, there are only 2 teachers. And most kids who take one class get if the scheduling flips the other way and that flips over, this essentially blocks from being able to use, like if you had, Francella teaching one year and then you get black, and you used black the year before as your tutor, now nobody. So I'm like, is this the law of unintended? I'm all good with the currently teaching. I'm worried about, are we going to wind up with scenarios where we're creating a problem for some of our kids on the prior year part? Now, at the elementary school, this wouldn't be a problem. But at these super advanced subjects in the high school, this could wind up being a problem.
Ms. Olson.
I tend to agree with that. You don't want, I think it makes sense to take out taught the prior year, just because that makes sense to me.
We can take it out, but I think they're still blocked from doing it based on the contract. The question is, do we want to make, and one of the things we had talked about in PGC was, do we want to make this broader in some way so we're not necessarily so tied to the contract, and then the contract can make it more specific if we want, or how did we want to approach that from that perspective? And I can't remember, I think I actually sent it to you to sort of say, how would you want us to do this from a negotiation perspective?
I could wind up supporting it, but I think we need to, if we want to pass it, just pass it. But what we need to do is we probably, to help ourselves, we need to get this out. And we need to get it out of the GA contract too, even if the GA hasn't asked for it, because in the interest of our students, and lots of parents hire tutors, they need to be able to do that.
I think
and it's good for teachers too.
I will, before we jump to it too quickly, I would like to speak for Barbara, who's not here, who felt really strongly about having significant restrictions on this. So He was on the other extreme, so just.
So Gaetan, if it's in the contract, I'm supportive of it for now. If the contract changes, obviously we would revisit the policy. Yeah.
I don't know, I support parents.
Well, we leave it in for now because it's the current version of the contract. If we need to change it, we can change it. Other discussion? All right, so all those in favor of accepting 4134 as revised? Is that a yes or no? So, okay, passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the board goals. Give me a minute, I'm jumping around here. Okay, so just to level set where we are, we started discussing board goals at the beginning of the school year. We basically tabled that pending the Lighthouse training from CABE. So 2 weeks ago, we specifically had a session devoted to our goal building. 7 members participated in that session. The goals that were discussed there were shared with all members afterwards, and then again as part of the package for tonight's meeting. In many ways I feel these are behavioral or aspirational goals for how the board functions and how we use our time. In broad strokes, it's collectively deciding to focus our work around the strategic plan, increasing our effectiveness, supporting development of a communications plan, and assuring an effective partnership with the incoming superintendent. There was a comment earlier about not focusing on academics. Obviously, in my mind, that's core to our strategic plan, and that's part of the discussion that we had at that session. So what I'd like to do is move the adoption of the Board of Education annual goals, obviously going forward from now through 2019-2020. Is there a second? Ms. Stowe. And just so everybody understands this, we obviously have an election coming up in November. Should that board that's sitting at that time after people were elected and all the rest decide that these goals need changing, they can be changed. But the idea is to get this down on paper, what we are trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, how we want to use our time and what we do. Anyway, with that discussion, Ms. Holson.
Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% on board. I think the goals are, as you said, living and breathing. They change, but I think it's really paramount that we get them on paper. So they're ideals or something we can strive for and work towards and tweak along the way. But I'm on board with that.
Ms. Dayton.
I have edits on every line, and so if you want to take each line, but I want to turn them into SMART goals, and I know it's late, but it's on the agenda, it's 10 p.m., and if you want to take up this item, I think we need a thorough discussion.
So, Ms. Dayton, it would have been helpful maybe to get this before the meeting, but then we could have...
I think we conduct our meetings in public.
That's fine, I have no problem with that. It would be helpful to have it ready. That's fine. All right, before Ms. Dayton starts to edit, are there any other comments?
I was going to say maybe sort of a middle ground a little bit, which is, I think I stated at our last meeting about this, it's great to have goals, but I feel like we need to have some plan. We need to have a system, whether it's measuring or how we want to address them. I still think there needs to be a plan so that we don't end up, whatever our deadline is a year from now, whatever, going, wow, it's great that we had goals, but we never did anything with them. And so one of the thoughts, and I have no problem with looking at, potentially making them more specific, but it was also looking at, okay, what do we think, how are we going to approach these, and having a little bit more of a sense of that, as we're looking at them. And certainly I think the communication one, I think, makes sense if we're doing Lighthouse to really focus and make sort of very specific that Lighthouse meeting about trying to set that up. The collaboration, I think that's sort of everybody, but certainly I think our executive committee can look at that. I think, when we're looking at the effectiveness, I think a combination of PGC and the executive committee, the super, sort of assigning those things. And then, probably the strategic plan would be more in the strategic plan committee, and clearly in all these cases coming back to bring it back to the board to constantly kind of go back and forth in terms of refining them. The one piece that I was looking at that I might suggest would be a little bit differently without taking away from Jennifer, because I know you want to go through this line by line, but I think the budget issue may not really be a strategic plan thing in the first one, and I think my only point with the effectiveness was I wasn't exactly sure whether professional development would really be a PGC issue, but in terms of general strokes, to kind of do that and then have people flesh out a little more specifically what the goals are as sort of that next step.
Ms. Stowe.
I like that as sort of an in-between, Gaetan. I think we did a great job, but we could just pat ourselves on the back for a second, at the professional development meeting. I think we actually all really worked well together and came up with some really good ideas. I know that we sort of negotiated to making it 4 broad topics and then getting a little detail underneath each area. But of course, you know, these are good aspirational goals. You like the motherhood and apple pie sometimes term that I throw out there. But we do need to dig down deeper. And I like the idea of doing it through committees because that seems to be, and we work effectively that way. I mean, you know, the PGC, we came to you guys with some ideas. They weren't perfect. We went through some of them. We'll bring it back to committee, right? And then we could also bring it to vote. And so I like it. And I think the way you sort of laid it out, Gaetan, you broke it up down sort of between 4 different groups, right? You have going from the top, you have your strategic planning committee, which I know you, Peter, and Barbara, I believe, are on. You have the PGC. Then you do the lighthouse training, and then the last one goes to the executive committee. So I think that everyone sort of has a role in it. That's just my 2 cents.
I think the budget one might be a budget committee.
Mr. Chair.
Been doing goal setting in organizations. I've been doing goal setting for organizations in a long, long time. I don't know why these are fine. Unfortunately, they have a little bit of it, which is very typical in goals that aren't always well refined. This is a little bit of a job description. It's like hey, by the way, we're going to do the stuff that we're just supposed to do in our job description anyway. I never think that stuff should be in goals. I mean, I can vote for it as it is, but I would encourage this to have a little bit more work. And I think it should have some things. Typically, I'm used to goals that are a little bit more targeted. They're a little bit more time-bound. They have an actual, to what end, a result to them that you're looking for. But, you know, if everybody wants to take it up now and dispose of it now, I'm not going to get in the way of that either. But I think this could use a little bit more development.
Ms. Dayton.
There's no way I can vote on this tonight unless we have bullet points under number 4, which is totally blank, and that's where we need to focus. So, you know, if you want the board committees to receive edits, that's fine, but I absolutely can't vote on this without measurable, time-bound bullet points that get us to deadlines so we know if we've been effective or not effective.
So Jennifer, I had this discussion with Barbara before she left town. Not all goals are actually meant to be measured in that way with metrics and all the rest of it. There's a lot of articles out there. There's a great one from MIT's Sloan Business School. The idea for us to measure these, though, is we have, as part of our policies, that we are going to do a self-evaluation. It happens every spring. Well, it hasn't happened every spring. We did it last spring. We'll be doing it going forward. It's actually scheduled for a meeting. And the idea would be to take out the goals at that point and say, these are some of the things we said we were going to do this year, and have that discussion. It doesn't mean it's quantifiable by numbers, but it should be quantifiable in terms of how are we doing on this path. Our strategic plan, not everything in it is a SMART goal. We've sort of meandered into that, but I don't know that each one of these is going to have a measure to it. If you have specific things you want to add under bullet point, obviously we can take a motion to amend and have that discussion here.
I never said the word numbers. I never said the word metrics. I said measurable and time-bound. So I'll give you an example. Under number 4, there's absolutely no indication of what would be an ideal way for the board to work collaboratively. 8 of us could have 8 different impressions of whether or not we're collaborative. So I can't vote for something that's a blank slate. So I have, just as an example, and I'm not asking for comments, just so I'm clear, public comments are not personal and are about important issues related to student achievement and well-being. Members and superintendent work together to represent the whole district. Board keeps non-agenda correspondence with superintendent to a minimum. Board regularly gives feedback and evaluates the superintendent's work based only on mutually agreed goals. Board and superintendent involve community in decision-making using an agreed process. Board communicates as one body and works with the media in an ethical manner.
Mr. Sheriff.
I'm back on this. I'm hearing, I mean, with all due respect, Peter, I'm hearing a bit of, it sounds kind of aggressive pushback on people commenting about this. And my question would be, what is the urgency to get this done tonight? Why can't we spend a little bit more time massaging this and bring it back at the next meeting?
With all due respect, Peter, we spent a couple hours doing
I know you
this 2
did.
weeks ago.
I know
You
you
weren't there.
I know you did.
So we made sure you got it. It's been available. I haven't received any comments. I did ask members if they had any comments to share them. No one did. I don't know that Jennifer's comments are, I don't know if it's pushback. I think it's productive. There's a motion on the table. We can vote on that motion. If you want to amend, motions to amend, we can do that. We started this process in September, okay? Members asked to push it off. We've dedicated time to this. Every member has had input into this, and this is where we landed. Is it perfect? I don't know, but I'm not going to let perfect get in the way of actually doing something and moving forward. So if you'd like to make motions to amend, that's fine. If you want to vote against it, that's fine too. I respect that. But at this point, we really have spent hours and hours on this. So to say it's not ripe, we've spent time. We can continue refining over
We
time.
had one meeting on this that was the last meeting. This idea that we've been working on this for months since September is preposterous. I mean, this came up in our Lighthouse meeting. We had a cursory conversation. We agreed to do this in the last meeting, which you guys did. Great, wonderful. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to push it, push it.
Dr.
Just to
Francis.
get some feedback.
So, I mean, I think the suggestions overall from Jennifer for number 4 seemed pretty good to me. If there are substantial changes to the ones, I think it might make sense to sort of have some discussion about it, and then we can decide whether that's something we feel could go back to the bodies that we've sort of assigned, sort of say, okay, this is our starting point, we're going to have those people refine it, and then we can always modify it at that time if we wanted to. I don't know how, but it would be nice for us to have some sense of working together to move this forward. So I'm trying to think of some way to do that.
Just call the question.
How can you include Megan and I in all those committees? Because like between Megan and I think we're the only two that aren't on any one of those.
I wanted to budget. I wanted to give one of them to budget.
Yeah, certainly be involved in communications. So, but, other discussion?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I was going to say, I mean, the plan was sort of to organize and bring back to the board so that, you know, just like everybody's input is taken when we go through policies, it would be exactly the same thing. It's like we're organizing, we're trying to take the input that we're getting from the board, organize it in a way to bring it back and work on it again. So it wouldn't really be the committee making the decision, it's just organizing the proposal.
Ms. Olson.
Just in terms of committees, like there's committees I'm really interested in, but they all meet during the day when I'm teaching. So most of them do. So I would have to just be comfortable. There's ones that I'd love to be part of, like even strategic planning committee, but like newer ones. But I honestly, I do feel comfortable with people coming back and like PCNG, we share or I'm able to share, this is a concern I have. I see it in a red line. I mean, you take what we have and you work with it. So that's not, me not being on one of these particular committees does not make me not want to go forward with this. Like these are, you know, we can't stop, like, we can't worry about perfection. You know, we're going to make progress. And I think, honestly, like number 4, I think that, you know, it's something that we're going to do with the transition. So, I don't know. I think it's important to vote on this.
Any further discussion? All right, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of accepting the goals? 4. All those against? 3. It passes 4-3. Thank you. Dr. Francis.
Peter, I'm sorry, would you mind repeating your motion?
The motion was to accept the board goals going forward and for the 2019-2020 school year. Dr. Francis.
I would request feedback on these, and based on what I said, I also feel like these are things that if we feel like we have adjustments to them or things that we would like to make more specific, that the expectation would be that we would come back and then modify those as expected. And I'm trying to lay the groundwork for moving forward. And so, I mean, I would love to have Jennifer, you send around, Jennifer. I would love to have you send around your suggestions for this, because I'm sure a lot of them are great, and so it would be wonderful to have that input. And I would even say that if we wanted to be more specific about number 4, the executive committee could look at that and then come back and propose those as changes or some modification of those as changes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is transfers, Ms. O'Donnell.
Happy to take any questions on the transfers.
You know, I have questions, but I'll go to Ms. Raven first.
I guess I don't know if I would categorize it as a question or concern. So the things that leapt out at me is in section 1, how we had $100,000 that we could move from software to the tuition payments. That's a done deal. We have to find the money for those things, but it was just concerning, like that was a big line item in my mind. And then the other part is in section 5, that we would move money to use during the curriculum and assessment in June. What would we have done in June if we didn't have $37,000 to move to that line item?
Yeah, please do answer that one, because I was going to ask it anyway.
So just as you know, the budget was built in 2017, so through implementation, there was work slated. The software piece that we were going to renew our license with, it's called School Improvement Network, PD 360. It's on-demand professional learning. Just before we were about to launch and looking at the usage, there wasn't enough usage or need after surveying the teachers, so we ended up not renewing our license with them. So that's why that money was there and not encumbered for something else. So that, okay. The plan was to spend it on PD 360, and we did not. It would be foolish to, like Ralph said, throw good money away. With regard to the language arts transfers, again, being built in 2017, there was work that was slated to support language arts, having heard from teachers that they wanted to go to national and local conferences. And again, based on that work and what we were doing internally, not a lot of teachers engaged in that. And one of the internal consultants that was brought in, that we planned for a close-up, they actually did the work gratis, so we didn't have to pay them. And then again, as a result of that learning, the middle school teachers in particular, were extremely excited about embedding this work this year into their units for next year. So again, rather than wait a year, we wanted to capitalize on that energy and the excitement and have that team come in for the June Institute to embed and align the ELA and the social studies work with the close-up resources.
While we're on item 5, I said it at the last meeting, I'm going to start to sound like a broken record. Because we had savings, that's not found money that we need to spend. We had savings because we didn't use it. It doesn't mean we should go immediately find another use for the money. And I have concern about that. And if we continue to see that, I'm very concerned about that. And I go back to the comment Peter made earlier about how we're building our budgets. So that's a concern. I don't know if anybody has anything else, because I've got other stuff. So. Ms. Rabin.
So the software was professional development in section 1, and like we've been talking about how important professional development is, so was it just not a great...
5 teachers were using it at the time, and I don't think that was, I could not make that decision to then spend $90,000 on that resource when 5 teachers were using it.
Mr. Scher.
How long have we had that contract?
With PD 360? We used it for 2 years. And it scaled back as I was monitoring the usage. We were all in the beginning, and then over time, it wasn't working for the district and the teachers.
What does that mean, they were all in? What does that
I'm
mean?
sorry?
Can you choose, but they were all in? Can you talk about that?
Meaning that
specifically?
the initial usage of the modules within PD 360 at the time was, it was pretty high among all the schools. So every school teacher, K through 12, had access to it. And then over time, it just wasn't being accessed. And surveying the teachers through our TEPL committee and so on, there just wasn't a need for it.
Okay. Is it, oh, that's a separate subject.
Again, we intended to use it when we built the budget in 2017. That was part of the plan. But through implementation and analysis, it just did not, I just could not.
You said you said when we first rolled it out, we gave them online PD.
Yes, PD.
They used a bunch of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they stopped using it.
Correct.
Okay.
So I've got, I actually wanted to get some explanations about 3 and 4 as were moved within special ed.
3 is, we had a consultant who was working with a family as part of a settlement agreement. Initially, they indicated that they did not want to use that consultant anymore, so we canceled the contract and moved some money. And then they indicated that they wanted the consultant back, and since it was part of an agreement, we had to reinstitute the contract.
What's the other
That's 3. And 4 is kind of good news, bad news. The reason why we're paying CompuClaim more money is because we're finding more Medicaid reimbursement, and they get paid a percentage of our reimbursement dollars. So we're actually getting Medicaid money back at a higher level than we thought we would. So we had to increase the contract to pay them. That's why that contract went up.
And one last question on item 6. I think it's item 6. I want to make sure that these are things that fit properly within an operating budget and are not capital, because it talks about furniture. So we're using money from one line and putting it into buying furniture for media.
Can you ask your question again?
Sure. So item number 6 is to move money. The note says that it's for purchase for learning spaces, the purchase of furniture. Furniture is usually a capital item, not a operating item. So we don't traditionally move money, and we're really not capable of moving money from our capital to our operating. So if they're for tools.
No, our understanding is that if it's over a certain threshold of $15,000, then it would be a capital purchase.
If it's under, it's not. Make sure we're clear.
Correct. If it's under the $15,000, no, that's what we do in the operational budget.
Any other questions, comments? Can we get a motion to accept the transfers? Ms. Dayton, is there a second? Ms. Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes 601. Okay, the next item is the monthly financial and staffing report. Ms. O'Donnell.
So we're presenting the report for month ending March 25th for your approval. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Ms. Doe.
It's actually for Bob. So I just want to make sure he's awake over there. Since this is always dated, we obviously have a headmaster now, fantastic. We have a new lab principal. We have a program administrator at Winrose. So unless I'm confused, can you just update me on the Hamilton Avenue and Eastern Middle School? Are those the only two that we're missing then?
Certainly. The Hamilton Avenue is on here. The search for that, the advertisement closes this Friday. The interviews are set for May 7th. Eastern Middle School, the initial interviews were this past Monday. The second interviews are set for May 3rd. Once Eastern Middle School is resolved, then we'll know which direction to go in terms of the house administrator at the high school that's an interim position right now. And the program administrator at Windrose was filled on a regular basis, so that would come off the list. The headmaster will continue on the list because that's an interim assignment for the year. So we'll still track that just to have it on the list.
Ms. Rabin.
So I guess I had the same reaction you did, Kathleen. I was like looking, I was like, wait a second, and then I had to go back to February. Is it a huge hardship to have this be a little bit more real time as opposed to, a month in prior? Because I'm just thinking, not, I guess, that anybody really reads our stuff in that great detail, but if they looked at headmaster, they'd be like, what? I thought this happened already.
I'll talk with Lori offline about that. I know my deadline to Pat Marin is the 25th of the month to submit both the vacancy and the staffing reports for the following month's board meetings. So if that's something we can change the timeline on, we will.
Maybe you can annotate it in some way. Obviously, we understand it's a month-end report, but if something's changed, or at least noted on the cover sheet, that might be the easiest way. I don't know. Dr. Francis.
I moved this way because I wasn't planning on making any comments on this, but is there a reason why it has to be to her at that time? I mean, could it be actually that it matches our schedule?
Just saying that out loud because you felt like it. Where did it go? I love it. Do it again. All right, one more lap.
I have I guess a comment more than a question on the revenues. So it looks like good news, bad news. It looks like we got money from the state. We had zeroed out the line of educational cost sharing, and yet we got $1 million. Is that right?
That's an annual practice of the town to not budget for the revenues.
Because we don't count on the state giving us anything, even if they're required.
I don't know what their reasoning is.
I absolutely want every single person on this board to know that after fighting, we have never been zeroed out. Please remember that. I know we get a pittance, but please don't say we're zeroed out.
How much did we get?
Looks like we got $1 million right here. 1,018,000. This report shows that for this year so far, we've gotten $1 million. So all told, we're giving back to the town about $2 million in revenue so far. Mr. Chair. Okay. And again, thank you for the continued work on the capital projects. Every time I look at this, there's fewer open projects. The dollars are changing. Real work is happening. So thank you for that. All right. Any other comments on this? All right. So all those in favor of accepting the monthly financial and staffing report? All those opposed? Mr. Chair, you were yes? Okay, so it passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, so the last action item is, yes, ma'am.
No motion was made.
Yes, a motion was made. Who made that motion?
Who made it?
Who made it? Okay, I'll make the motion. We'll vote again. I move we accept the monthly staffing report, but I think somebody did. It was seconded, but I don't remember by who. All right, I'll make the motion, just so you have it, but it's on camera. Ms. Olson seconds. I've made the motion. All those in favor of accepting the financial and staffing report? Thank you. It's 10:30, so you know. All right. Next up is the meeting minutes for the special meeting held on 3/28. This was held in an executive session. The way the minutes read, hang on one second, I gotta find my notes. Draft minutes, tried to contact Barbara before she left town, but the draft minutes for an explanation state that Mr. Mayor told the board he had appointed himself for 1 year as the interim headmaster of Greenwich High School. I don't believe that accurately reflects the actual conversation that happened. So I would propose that we amend that to read the following. That Mr. Mayo discussed the headmaster search in his coordination with Dr. Tony Jones. Mr. Mayo then sought input from the board regarding his appointment as the interim headmaster of Greenwich High School. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Stowe. All those in favor of amending the draft? 7-0. All right, any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the amended minutes of the meeting? Thank you very much. Passes 7-0. Agenda plan. So I don't know that there's anything formally from tonight, although I'd expect we're going to hear Cardinal Stadium again, some food services, Anything else, Kim, that I'm missing?
And that's what I had, those two things, and then next year, a deeper discussion on secondary schools revisioning.
Put that down for a retreat of some sort.
Maybe that's September, for September retreat.
Discussion versus action. So if it's a first read of something, generally we take it as a discussion, and then we would have it as an action the following month. All right, any other questions, comments? Dr. Francis? Is there a second? Ms. Dayton, all those in favor of adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.